Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Hockey Rubs. This will be your podcast for our brand new Dynasty Hockey League. A lot of good things to talk about here in Puck Bunnies, and this will be the first episode. I am your host, John Height, joined alongside by Connor and Bracton, where we're going to break down the entire first draft where we all drafted our respective teams, talk about some trades, and also preview the farm systems that we've accumulated throughout that draft. So, Bracton, I'll start with you first as an LM. How are you doing?
Doing good. Been excited to get this going for a long time. Establishing a real dynasty hockey league has been a priority for me for years, and our experiment with the last league was successful enough to where we had enough interest to do this one. So it's an exciting time, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
And Connor.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. This is my first Dynasty Hockey or Hockey League period, so it's been a good experience to get to learn more about the sport and just have such an electric environment with a lot of people from our baseball league and newer faces.
Yeah, definitely should be really exciting. And big thank you to anyone who participated in our first league. I was fortunate enough to win that one, which I know there was a ton of issues with it. It's all in the past now. We've turned a new page here with a lot of good owners. I think we have a really, really solid group of owners who all know what they're doing. I really don't see any of those issues arising again. So let's get to the draft. So the first team that we're going to talk about is the team that had the number one overall pick in our draft. And obviously, you guys and girls all remember that this is the first time, at least I think we can all agree, we had majors and prospects in one draft. I know it was definitely a challenge having 30 majors players, 20 prospects, and 50 rounds. It felt long, but I still thought it was a pretty good time. So, Smell and the Cucamonga Cracker Killers. Again, I love that name. I mean, Smell always knows what he's doing with his team names. So he had the first overall pick. He chose his guy, Connor Bedard, from the Chicago Blackhawks. Obviously, being a Blackhawks fan, he was kind of leaning that. We could debate whether he should have picked McDavid or not. But let's break down his team. Bracton, I'll let you lead us off. Tell me what you like and don't like, if there's anything from Smell's team.
All right, so the debate between Bedard and McDavid first overall was something that we'd been harping on for a couple months. He was teasing us a little bit with Bedard gifs and images and everything in the server for a while, but he and I had extensive conversations on it, and I've done my own independent research on it, and I believe that Connor Bedard will eclipse 70 points this season, and if he does that, even if McDavid puts up a 110, 120, I still believe Bedard is the right pick here, simply because of the elite potential that he has. I think if he is able to rack up this amount of points this year, with this being the worst year, possibly the worst point production year of his career, I think he only gets better. So if he puts up 70 points this year and then makes the jump similar to McDavid, I believe McDavid was a point per game player his rookie year until he got hurt. I could see that happening here. And if it does, then I think Smell's got probably the best player in the league going forward. And maybe if we have this draft this time next year, it won't even be that much of a debate anymore. So I like that pick. His second round pick, I think he got a little spooked when he saw Sorokin and Devin Levi go off the board and he had to grab a goalie. Jake Oettinger is one of my favorite goalies in the league. I had him in the last league. He is really special, and I believe Dallas is going to have a really good year this year. So although I wouldn't have gone goalie as high as he did, I think that looking forward to at his team, if we just looked at his team and just saw Jake Oettinger on it, then I don't think anybody would object to that. I believe he's a top 5 dynasty goalie easily, and Smell got a really good pick there, even if it might have been a little high. But the rest of the draft, starting in the third round, he drafted a bunch of guys on the older side. Not bad players by any means, but people that are older for a dynasty format, like Nikita Kucherov, Jake Yancel, Artemi Panarin, Roman Josi. That's 4 of his top 6 picks being around that 30-year-old plateau or exceeding it. So I'm not sure I love the idea when you pick Connor Bedard first overall. Like, if your intention was going to be to win this year, then I would have probably suggested a McDavid pick. I didn't know what he was going to do about that necessarily, but I think that if he were to pick Bedard, I don't know whether loading up on old guys was the right idea, but maybe if he puts up 70 points or like I think he will or exceed that, then we'll see where Smell goes. But as far as sleeper picks go, or just any other picks in the draft, I really like Philip Gustafson in the 16th round. I think that's incredibly high value. Me being stupid, I picked Linus Ullmark 7 picks before. That's probably going to haunt me. I would much rather have Philip Gustafson now looking back at it. So I think Smell got some really good value there. I also really like Aduradu Adurati, sorry, in the 28th round. I think that was really good value for someone who I consider to be a top 100 prospect. And I'm also into William Defoe in the 31st round. I think he makes the Islanders this year and has a really, really nice year. So as far as some of the other prospects, a lot of them are just lottery tickets. So we'll see what happens. But overall, I think Smell has the potential to be a competitive team this year.
Definitely. Connor, what did you have to say about Smell's team?
I think Braxton had terrific analysis that this is a big gamble on Bedard producing early. Braxton and I have a bet that Bedard is over under 70 points, and I'm on the under. So I think there is going to be some time for him to develop, though he will be a star. Nikita Kucherov for the 3rd rounder, I think that's a really good pick, even though maybe slightly on the older side. Some teams clearly had a motive to start drafting young as early as possible, and then others clearly went for it, and I think Smells a little bit of the latter. Some picks I really like, Jamie Drysdale in the 10th round. Hopefully Bedard's best buddy Seth Jones in the 17th, I think is good value given his previous production. Junis Korpisalo, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, in the 27th. That's good for a backup goalie, and Andre obviously is more than a capable starter. So I definitely think Smell is going to be in contention, but I'm very curious to how his team's younger development will go along with Bedard's, or if he's going to start trading some of these players for younger assets if things start to go south.
Yeah, you guys brought up some really good points. My take on it is, me and Bracken, we've argued about should have Bedard or McDavid went first. And to me, I just still don't understand, like, if you're going to take Bedard, I don't fully understand why. I mean, Kucherov, Gensel, Panarin, and Yossi were those next couple of picks. You look who else was on the board, and if you wanted people, which I thought would make a little bit more sense, just a fitting Bedard's timeline. Guys like, Beniers went 2 picks later. Braden Point still, I think, 26, 27. Eichel's in his mid-20s. Aho, Mo Seider. These are players that are obviously older than Bedard, because Bedard's like, whatever, 17 years old or something like that. I just thought it would fit the timeline a little bit better. Connor, you brought up an interesting point. Maybe he drafted them to trade them for younger players. I just thought maybe he would, just draft younger players to begin with if you're going to take Bedard. Because I kind of have a hot take from this. I feel like if he just went McDavid and then drafted the guys he did, he's easily a championship contender, which I already think he's a playoff team with this team alone, especially with Bedard. I think he's going to have a good rookie season. But, McDavid had 150 points last year. If he had McDavid along with Kucherov, Gensel, Panarin, and Yossi, who are guys, obviously for Dynasty, I guess they're on the older side, but, Kucherov's still an over 100-point player. Gensel's a point-per-game player. Panarin's a point-per-game player. I think he'd be an easy championship contender. So that's just my 2 cents on it. I'm not saying it's a bad strategy, just something I was a little bit curious about, because I feel like if you're going to lean the older side, you kind of had to take McDavid. Another thing, which I guess was discouraged because we didn't really have draft pick trading, was if he was always going to take Bedard, it was pretty, vocal that Paula wasn't going to take Bedard because I think she really wanted McDavid. Maybe a trade back could have been something that could have been in the works. Obviously, there has to be some trust there, and obviously there's a lot of new people in this league. And if there was draft pick trading, it probably would have been a little bit more plausible. But maybe a trade back from 1 to 1-2, I feel it could have been still a huge haul if he never had any intention of taking McDavid. Looking around the board, I'm going to say also, he took the older dudes in that stretch, but I really like the Pierre-Luc Dubois and Robert Thomas picks. Those are guys that I guess, they're still older. They're young still to me, but they're not, they fit the Bedard timeline a little bit better is what I'm trying to say compared to what the other guys were. Lucas Reichel, I love in the 11th round, a guy who's going to be mooching off Bedard for probably the next 5 to 10 years. Dylan Gunther, I really like too as a prospect on Arizona, especially with Logan Cooley coming up. You sniped Andre Kuzmenko from me. I think it was like 2 picks or something between it. I thought I could get him on the wraparound. And just some other guys real quick in the later rounds. I also like Atu Ratu a lot, like Brackton mentioned on Vancouver. I love Mackie Samoskevich of Florida. He could probably make the team this year, potentially. They're in a little bit of a salary crunch in Florida. And then the last pick I was going to mention, I'm just trying to find it. I really like, he's not, he doesn't have a lot of value, I feel like, anymore. But he was a top prospect at one point. He's been absolutely hampered with injuries. But Alex Turcotte of the LA Kings in the 33rd round, that's the range where you kind of have to take some shots on players, especially young players. I mean, Turcotte going into his draft year was a consensus top 10 pick. I forgot, where in the top 10. I think he might have been like 5th or 6th. I could be wrong, though. I think he still got some upside on the LA Kings. And, taking guys with some upside there, I think, was the goal. And I think Smell did a phenomenal job of that. And I still think Smell is definitely a playoff team, at least in year one, just based on the roster alone. But yeah, I just still think if he took McDavid, he would definitely be a championship contender. Again, this is super early on. A lot of trades have to be made, but just very interesting draft by Smell. So let's move on to the next team who picked 2nd overall, and that was Paula and the NorCal Wildcats. So let's go to that right now. And Connor, I'll let you lead off for this one. What did you think of Paula's draft?
So for context that I don't know if we mentioned at the beginning of the draft, this is 50 rounds, 30 major league players and 20 prospects. Everyone was required to hit those marks immediately during the draft. And then Height mentioned trades. Technically, in-draft trades were illegal, but there's no way to hide that under the table. So as I'm sure we'll get into, there were some discussions for trades that just happened to happen seconds after the draft finished. But I do think a trade would have made sense. And Paul almost seemed to kind of go the reverse route of Smell. Connor McDavid is a very win-now player, a top 5 hockey player of all time. And then in the following rounds, it seemed like Paul focused more on the younger folks. Even Devon Levi in the 2nd round was a little bit surprising, since I think a lot of people didn't even have him as like the top goalie prospect on the board. And some other younger, Jake Onder taking 1 pick after, I think definitely highlights that. Dylan Cousins is also very young, 5th rounder. That was good value in my opinion. Kalen Aston in the 10th round is a talented 23-year-old on the Wild. So I'm really curious. I think Paula had an interesting draft. I think one pick that Brackton and I are both going to talk about is trying to find exactly where it is. Dominic DiVincenzo. We call him Dominic DiVincenzo because of the basketball player. He was not too high on many of our prospect lists. So I think to see him taken in between Adam Larson and Junis was quite a surprise. But I'm really curious to see how Paula's draft plays and what trades she makes in the weeks to come.
So,
And Brackton.
All right, we'll start with the top. Obviously, McDavid is legit. Honestly, maybe some people didn't expect him to be there. I know Paula didn't. For a while, we've been talking about it, and we didn't know if Smell was just blowing smoke, saying that he was going to take Bedard or not. So getting McDavid at 2 was a home run. But then I think that Paula had one of the more interesting drafts because, honestly, I didn't know how this was going to go, this draft. You could go into it with the plan and everything, but once you're in it, it feels like you just got to get your guys. I kind of figured that out around round 3 or 4 was just like, okay, forget strategy. You just got to pick whoever you want. I think that was Paula's plan from the start because say what we want about Devin Levi, the kid's legit, okay? I watched a lot of his games in Buffalo this year during his period where he got called up for a little bit, and he was the reason why the Sabres missed the playoffs by 2 points. If they had him for the full season, I think that the Sabres are clearly in a playoff picture. And then this magical Florida Panthers run that we just saw probably doesn't happen if the Sabres have Devin Levi for the full year. So they will this year. They're probably going to ease him into it. I don't think they want him playing 60 games from the jump. I think that they're going to find some sort of tandem situation in Buffalo. Maybe that's a trade for Connor Hellebuck, or maybe that's just a interesting move that appears in a little later date, or maybe they just let him go. But regardless, Devin Levi's a very talented goalie, and I look forward to seeing what they can do this year because I feel like Buffalo, with the recent retirings going on in Boston, has a chance to really do something this year in the Atlantic Division. So, looking at the rest of the draft, Timo Meyer in the third round is interesting. I think a full year with Jack Hughes is going to really help him, or Nico Hischier, wherever he plays in the Devils lineup, he's going to score. And his full adjustment period to New Jersey is probably completed. So I feel like he's going to have a big year this year. I just don't know whether I would have picked him in the third round myself. Smell mentioned Dylan Cousins. Look, if he can follow his teammate Tage Thompson and have a breakout year this year, I see no reason why Dylan Cousins shouldn't have been a top 5 round pick. He could possibly be in for a big year this year too, so I'll be paying attention to that. But other picks I really liked, Ilya Samsonov in the 14th round. Toronto looks like they could be the best team in the Atlantic Division this year, and if that's the case, they probably win 55 games, somewhere around that, 50 to 55 games, and the bulk of those will be Samsonov. So if he finishes a top 5 goalie in the league this year, I wouldn't be surprised. So getting him in the 14th round was value to me. I also really like the Colby Barlow pick in the 17th round. I feel like he's for sure a top 50 prospect in my mind, and I think that he could have a really big year this year wherever he plays. I know there's some confusion there, but Connor mentioned Dante I'm going to say Divenish. I don't even know how to pronounce this name. I'm not even going to try. I'm going to just say Dom. So the interesting thing about him is he was drafted in the 7th round, okay, but he had a 920 save percentage in 48 OHL games this last year, and we've seen a lot of 7th round picks develop their games and play games at World Junior tournaments and U18s around the world and stuff like that, including her 2nd round pick. Devin Levi was a 7th round pick in in the NHL draft. He's turning out to be one of the brightest young goalie stars in the league. So maybe Paula sees something we don't with this guy, but I guarantee you I had no idea who this dude was until this draft. So in the 27th round, it might have been a reach, but again, go get your guys and see what happens. I also really like her 34th pick, Jonathan Bergeron, so much so that I ended up making a trade for him after the draft. I feel like with all the movement going on in Detroit right now, I feel like he could be somebody that could contribute to their young core going forward. So maybe he has a good year this year on my team, not Paul's, but I do think that she had an okay draft, and we'll see where she goes from here. But definitely think that the top half was much better than the bottom. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to say, there were plenty of steals in this draft. I know it's hard to be a steal in the first top 5 picks, but I mean, Connor McDavid going second is just, I know it's still unbelievable to think about. So I mean, getting McDavid at 2, I think, is probably the best steal of the draft. In terms of value, just getting the best player in the league, the top 5 player of all time already, who's only 26, 27. At number 2, I still think is wild to think about. You guys talked about the Devin Levi situation, I think, pretty effectively. I think almost like I was looking between Smell and Paula's drafts. It almost made sense if Levi was going to go that high. It's like Smell's 3rd round Kucherov pick should have switched with Paula's 2nd round Levi pick, so that Levi and Bedard were together and Kucherov and McDavid were together. Just in terms of timelines, I'm a big timelines guy. So that was just a little bit interesting to me. I mean, Devin Levi is, in my opinion, the 2nd or 3rd best goalie prospect in the world. Number 1 is Jesper Wallstedt. And then, it probably goes Levi and Yaroslav Askarov. They're kind of like 2A, 2B. I think I lean Levi just a little bit more because we've seen a little bit more. But I still love Askarov a lot as well. Timo Meyer, I really like in the 3rd round. I think he's going to explode on that Devils team. And he fits the Connor McDavid timeline to me. I like Dylan Cousins, like you mentioned, in the 5th round. Such a young player, such a good player on that Buffalo team. Jake Sanderson was a guy we all were kind of looking at. Paula ended up being the lucky one to get him. I think that's a huge part of your future defensive core. we all know how we feel about Thomas Shabbat. So I think eventually he's going to be that guy. And obviously Chikrin gets hurt every other day. So I think Sanderson's going to be eventually that guy in Ottawa. I like Nikolai Ehlers. Another guy kind of gets hurt a little bit, but I also like that pick. Fits the McDavid timeline. You talked about Samsonov already, Colby Barlow. Kind of an underrated one, honestly, like, because we're thinking about this league. It's a categories league, which a lot of us haven't done for a while or really done at all, at least in the Dynasty format. Jacob Trouba in the 18th round. I know I'm a Rangers fan. I actually really can't stand him a lot in terms of fantasy wise, but he hits a lot of people. Hits is a category. So why not take someone who's going to probably guarantee you the hits category each week? So I really like the Trouba pick, honestly, in the 18th round. I guess some could say it's a reach, but if you're getting someone that's going to probably win you a category most weeks, I don't think it's that bad of a risk. So I think getting him, I think was pretty decent value for Paula. Looking later in the draft, the Berggren pick you talked about already. There's a lot of prospects, honestly, that Paula took. Like, I mean, me and Bracken are pretty well versed in our prospects. You know, we know pretty much everyone. There's even a couple of guys on here that were, I haven't heard of in a while, and then the DiVincenzo actually I never heard of either. So I trust Paula's scouting system in California and Canada, wherever she's currently based in right now. I mean, we know that she knows what she's doing. So she's seeing things in these prospects that maybe we're not. So I trust the vision in with the NorCal Wildcats. And again, Connor McDavid, I think, as long as you have him, you're going to probably be a playoff team in year one. McDavid is the greatest. So I think getting him the second overall was a slam dunk. So good luck to Paula for the rest of the first season. Well, let's now talk about my team, the Louisville River Frogs, Ribbit, that went the third overall pick in this draft. And Bracken,
So
I'll let you.
You had a
talk
lot
about
of
my team, and then
returning
Connor,
guys
and then I'll
from the
give
other
my 2
league. Not
cents.
a lot of people would know that if they weren't in the other league. But Leon Draisaitl, Adam Fox, Matty Beniers, Charlie McAvoy, William Eklund. Maybe you owned. Did you? I don't know if you owned Lane Hudson at a time. You might have. I don't know. I don't know if you finished with him or not. Okay, cool. But yeah, I mean those were, let's see, 1,
I
2,
did it.
3, 4, 5, 6 of your top 10 were returning, so it's good to see that you show some loyalty to the guys that won you the league in the old one. So that's pretty cool. But I mean, all these guys are ballers. Like, I mean, I don't know if I would have picked Leon Draisaitl third overall just simply because of age. I know that like obviously he's not like gonna die anytime soon. He's only like 26, but I mean, I don't know. He's still going to put up a lot of points. It's just I might have gone with like Jack Hughes or Austin Matthews, maybe somebody a little younger with still that high scoring upside. But other than that, Adam Fox is a home run. Other than Cale Makar, I mean, they're 1A, 1B defenseman probably for the next decade. So got the anchor on your defensive core is great. Matty Beniers is only going to get better off of his Calder winning season, so that's outstanding. And then McAvoy is somebody that could be on that tier 2 of defensemen. So I really like those first 4. That was the key to the draft for me, is nail your first 4 and then go with what you want to do after that. But the first 4 are the most important, and I think you probably got one of the best first 4s in the draft. I think other than maybe like Cody or. I mean, I don't even love my first 4, but yeah, I like yours a lot. Yours is really good. And I think Dylan Larkin's going to have a nice year, especially with the Brinket now. That could be really big. I think that Simon Nemec's one of the best defense prospects in hockey, and he should be up at least, maybe not to start the year, but at some point I could see him up. Wallsted's coming soon, whether it be this year or next. I mean, all the prospects you drafted early are close. Like, I don't know about Lane Hudson, but Cutter Gauthier is definitely up this year or next. Another full year of McTavish development is going to be great. Like, there's just a lot of home runs here. I think I like Oliver Moore in the 16th round, Jimmy Snuggerud in the 17th. Like those 2 are legit top 100 specs in my mind, easily. And then you got your decent amount of old dudes, but like only as like filler guys. Like none of them particularly core players. Like Matt Zuccarello, Joe Pavelski, Vladimir Tarasenko, Drew Doughty. All these guys are going to help you this year, but You still have, in my opinion, one of the best farm systems in the league that can come up and replace these guys in the near future, or you've got regular, just elite young players like the ones we've already talked about. So I really feel like your team's in a really good spot, and what do you call it? The prospects that you do have are very close to to shift away from these aging guys that you could even trade for more prospects to replace those. So I see what you did. I think you're in a really good spot, and definitely championship contender once again in my mind.
Well, thank you. It is nice to finally hear you talk some good about a fantasy team that I have. It's a little refreshing, but thank you for the for the kind words. Connor, what do you have to say?
So I think there are two main themes or a buzzword for a lot of our league narratives. For the River Frogs, when I was going into this draft, I didn't think I comprehended how tough it could be to find quality defensemen. And for the first 9 picks for the Frogs were very quality defensemen. Adam Fox is very top tier. Charlie McAvoy is great. Simon Nemec is a top defensive prospect, and Late Hudson is nothing to laugh at. And then the second one is the clear vision of young players. Smell and Paulo, I think we trust the vision and have a lot of talent on their teams, but there's a disconnect between their top picks and what the ages are in the third to fifth round after. I came into this draft with a clear focus towards the young. Draisaitl is not going to decline anytime soon. I think there's still quality years ahead. Fox is very young. Beniers is a top prospect if he still has that eligibility. Jesper Wallstad in the 7th round is just a dog, and the list continues. Gautier in the 11th, and then quality veterans to back it up and provide that production now while the younger teammates are developing over a year or two. So in between the focus on defensemen, the youth, and I can't help but mention Rako Gudic, who's since been traded to, in theory, help lead in hits. I think it was a really quality draft.
Yeah, thank you, Connor. I mean, Braxton, you kind of went exactly where I was planning to go in with this draft. I mean, I love the team I had in the old league. I knew it was going to be hard to really get all those guys back. But third overall, I was really debating this pick. I could have went a lot of ways. I just for best value, it's easily was going to be Draisaitl there. I mean, he's like 26, 27. He's still going to be an 100-point plus player with McDavid for at least, I think, in my opinion, 5 to 6 years, and maybe he'll slow down around then. But I feel like he had to be the pick there. If there was more openly active draft pick trading, I probably would have honestly traded back to like 5 or 6 to get Jack Hughes, because I was really stuck between Matthew Tkachuk went a little bit later in the draft, and Jack Hughes, honestly. So I mean, Hen got Jack Hughes at 6, but I mean, I couldn't really go wrong with Draisaitl. He's a guy that can help me win this year, and to me, he's still relatively young. I going into this draft, I was a little bit nauseous, honestly, thinking about a world where I wouldn't have Adam Fox, the number one defenseman on my favorite team and the second best defenseman in the NHL. I was really surprised to see him go where I got him. I thought he easily would have went in that early second round swing after Dahlin, because I mean, I still value him a little bit more than Dahlin. I know Dahlin's a little bit younger. They're probably around the same dynasty wise, but around that range, I thought he would have went maybe over like Fantilli, who, I mean, we could talk about maybe he went too early, maybe he went in the right spot, or Sorokin. So getting Fox in the second round for me was huge, and getting my guy Beniers. I mean, Beniers is probably my favorite non-Ranger right now. Traded for him in the last league, helped me win. So glad to get him back. McAvoy was a guy I traded away in the last league, wanted him back. So I wanted my core guys back. I got that in my first 4 picks. Larkin is a guy, I mean, on the younger side, playing on a good Detroit team. Love that. I built my center core a certain way. Simon Nemec, a little bit of fun fact. I've met him in person. I actually used my first in-person hockey interview when I covered the Devils this past year for my radio station at school. So I really wanted him at any way possible. He was nice to me, and he's a top 3 defensive prospect in hockey, and him and Luke Hughes are going to run the Devils blue line. I wanted the best goalie prospect as well this time around at Wallstead. Lane Hudson is just unbelievable. You guys both mentioned it. And for me, honestly, my best value pick, I mean, I think the prospects were probably, all value picks. But getting Connor Hellebuck, honestly, in like the 10th round is absurd. Like seeing like Sorokin go in the 2nd round, and I know Igor went a little bit earlier, and obviously they're a little bit younger than Hellebuck, who's like 30 already. But I mean, if he gets traded to like the Devils, like I feel like this is a home run pick. Getting a top 3 to 4 goalie in the league in the 10th round, while some players around the range he was going maybe aren't as good as Hellebuck. I love that pick a lot. I like Jared McCann, the 15th round too. He had 40 goals on the Seattle team, and he's young. Bracken, you mentioned Oliver Moore. I'm a huge fan of. I mean, he's going to play with Bedard. And you mentioned, I mean, I drafted some of these older dudes. I mean, Magic is my favorite, probably Ranger ever, so that's why I drafted him. But him, Pavelski, Vlad, who's now in Ottawa, sad, Drew Doughty, even Darcy Kemper. These are literally guys that I can play this year to try to win year one. And then by the time, they're fizzled out, I mean, these prospects will be up. The only thing is I did trade Cutter Gauthier to Louis. He was an under the table deal. He traded up for it. I ended up taking like Ovi from it. Again, a guy to like literally help me win this year. I had more than enough draft capital and prospects to make up for losing Gauthier. But I also love later on, getting what's his name? I took a bunch of Swedish players from this year's draft, the 23 draft. I like Otto Stenberg a lot. David Edstrom were some good late round picks. Just getting some value. Even a guy like Nicholas Backstrom, the 47th round. I know he's on the older side, but him on Washington was a guy I was kind of targeting later in the draft. And Bracken's favorite, Yegor Chinikov. I made sure to get him for this draft as well. So I'm happy with my team. You see the vision. I have some guys that can help me win this year, and then my core is set, and I have a ton of prospects and a lot of my favorite prospects in hockey, honestly, I have right now. And if Bailey trades me Zach Benson and Connor trades me Lapp, I'll be all good. So we'll see if that ends up happening. Let's go to the next team. We got Luke's team, which we have to talk about. He had the 4th pick. He is Miguel's best turtleneck. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe you guys do.
Yeah,
I apologize if I'm the only one that doesn't know what that means.
No,
but
it's Don Waddell is the Hurricanes.
Do you guys know or no?
And he wears turtlenecks all the time.
Is it about Curry?
Yeah. Yeah, but Don Waddell is the Hurricanes.
Okay, I thought it was like, right, isn't Curry's name like Wardell or something? Oh. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that makes more sense. Well, anyway, we'll start with Connor. He had the 4th overall pick. Tell me how you thought Luke did in this draft.
Well, I think at least for the first few picks, this is the equivalent of picking Curry first in a dynasty league. It might initially seem appealing, but the first couple picks were a little bit older, a little bit off than I'd have expected. Nathan MacKinnon obviously is an elite hockey talent, but in the top 10 to 15 consensus dynasty hockey assets, I think MacKinnon at 28 is one of the oldest. So that was a little bit surprising to me. The first 3 picks, Bedard, McDavid, Draisaitl, I don't think there was too much of a surprise there. So MacKinnon was really the first shocker of the draft once we knew what Smell was doing. Sorokin, I think, was the first goalie off the board. So since that didn't start a run on goalies, I think there's a little bit of concern that Igor and other top goalies didn't go there. Matt Boldy in the 4th round is a really interesting one. I think Adrian Kempe for the 5th pick was, I just don't like it. I'm not a fan and not sure what the Kings playing time is going to be there. Seth Jarvis in the 16th, I think, is going to be good value. Pietrangelo in the 17th, productive, older player. Those are some picks that stand out. And then an interesting younger prospect pool. So I think this is definitely, probably the least favorite draft of what the first 4
I'm in the
we've
same
discussed,
boat as Connor when it comes to MacKinnon, but I also can say it's the same
Braxton, what did
reasoning
you
that
think?
picked Draisaitl. Like, I think he's going to be around that 100-point mark for a while guys like Austin Matthews, maybe there's a little less certainty about that. If I were him, I probably would have picked Jack Hughes 4th overall. I honestly would have picked Jack Hughes 3rd overall, to tell you the truth. I'm a huge Jack Hughes fan. I think he only gets better from here.
Yeah.
And that's 90 points is now going to be his new normal, I think. So maybe that would have been a better pick than MacKinnon, but I do still like the player that he got for a couple years. I mean, he's still one of the best players on one of the league's best teams. So I mean, I don't think you can really go wrong with him necessarily. So saying McKinnon is a like bad pick, I don't know necessarily, but Sorokin, however, if I don't know, I've played some category leagues before, and I've had success with very average to below average goaltending. Just in my experience, I know you need a tandem on a good team, and maybe a lower end one. So I wasn't planning on taking a goalie for a while, as we'll see when you get to my draft. But if I were to take a goalie, I don't know that Sorokin would have been the first one I took. I don't think any of the first three were the first one that I would have took. I think Igor Shesterkin is by far the best fantasy goalie you can have, because I believe the Rangers are a good team and he'll get the bulk of the games. I mean, I was talking about Devin Levi a little earlier and saying that maybe he doesn't want to play 60 games this year. I think Shesterkin will play around that number. So Sorokin probably will too, but I don't love the Islanders as far as the rest of the roster goes. But then again, I mean, he was a Vezina candidate this year, and again, it's the same thing as McKinnon. Like, you pick Ilya Sorokin, you can't go wrong. Like, if we were just looking at this team after the draft and we saw McKinnon and Sorokin, we'd be like, okay, those are decent couple picks. But where they were picked relative to everyone else, I guess, is a question mark. But I love Miro Heiskanen. I feel like the defensemen were drafted pretty much in the order that I would have drafted them. I mean, Makar being the first defenseman off the board, Dahlin and Fox. I mean, you can take your pick, but I mean, I probably would have went Fox, but Dahlin has a little more offensive upside to me, so you can justify it. And then Miro Heiskanen third defenseman off the board makes a lot of sense. Third defenseman off the board makes a lot of sense to me. I think Dallas, like I said when we talked about Ottinger, is going to have a big year, and Heiskanen is going to be a big part of that, and I could see him being in the Norris conversation this year as well. So then we get to the lower parts of the draft, or the later and I can't really say I love any of these. I think Stuck had a really good year. I don't know whether that can be or sorry, but now hold on.
You're lagging out, Brack.
Okay, yeah, Wi-Fi's spotty in here, but no, I mean, just talking about getting your guys. I mean, Pyotr Korchekov in the 9th round, I guess that was okay.
Yeah, you're good.
But I do like his first two prospects in Leonard and Dvorsky, and he got Frank Nazar too. So I think that Luke had a very interesting draft. A lot of these guys are question marks that I feel will only be answered over time. But if he hits, I feel like Luke could be a fringe playoff team this year.
Yeah, you guys brought up, I think, everything that would needed to be addressed. I probably would have went maybe Hughes or Matthews here, but again, we saw like McKinnon get flipped around the old league. I mean, he's automatic. I think Draisaitl's still a notch above him, just being able to play with McDavid. I know McKinnon plays with the Avalanche and everything, but I just think McKinnon gets hurt way too much too. That's also been an issue. Is just being able to stay on the ice. But I mean, when he's on, he is pretty unstoppable. So I mean, he's going to have the production out of him. I think for at least the next 4 to 5 years. I think he justified it as taking Sorokin as the best goalie. He's actually been the preseason favorite to win the Vezina this year. People have been saying he's due. I probably would have taken Igor. I mean, I'm a Rangers fan, so I'm always going to lean Igor regardless. I mean, I think it goes Igor then Sorokin, honestly. So I mean, taking him as the first goalie off the board, I don't have a problem with it. I just feel like for that range, maybe one of these other players that went. But again, like getting the 1 or 2 goalie to me is still pretty big. No matter where you draft him, I love Miro Heiskanen. I love Matthew Boldy. I like it a lot. I mean, he's a super young player on the Minnesota Wild who had a really good year. He's only going to get better. And looking at some of the picks that went around him, maybe only like 1 or 2 around him are a little bit worse. But I mean, I love Matthew Boldy, so I think it's a great pick in the 4th round. Gotta agree with you, Connor. Don't love Adrian Kempe. That LA team is weird. Like, I don't know where he's going to play in that lineup, but I love the Fyodor Kochetkov pick. I know Hen is fuming because that's like his favorite non-flyer. Even Stammer in the 10th round, kind of like my Hellebuck pick. I mean, usually, I think Stammer went like top 3 or 4 round in our old league. Getting someone of that in like the 10th round, I know he's like 33, but he'll still give you, a couple of years on that Tampa team. I don't hate that pick at all. I think that was pretty good value for the 10th round. I'm not a big Dalbert Dvorsky guy, but I love Ryan Leonard in the 12th round. He's going to be fantastic on that Washington team. Love Frank Nazar. Oliver Blanc on Philly's a good pick in the 24th round. But yeah, definitely an interesting draft for Luke. I really don't know what this team is going to do year one. I still think he has, I think, a couple of trades in him too if he wants to address some areas. But, you talk about the top 4 picks. I mean, McKinnon, Sorokin, Heiskanen, and Boldy can potentially make the playoffs in year one, in my opinion. I think what he does with the rest of the team is, going to ultimately determine that. But I think Luke definitely hit on some good picks here in his first draft with us. Now, let's go on to pick number 5. No team name yet. So, Bailey, if you're listening, get on that because you need to do that. So, B. Mish 19, I guess we'll refer to Bailey now. Talk about his draft. Definitely.
So Bailey, as we found out, getting to know him as a Leafs fan.
Bracken,
so
I'll let you
Austin
go
Matthews,
first. What were your thoughts about this draft?
You can't hate it. It's the same thing as we've been talking about with Smell picking Connor Bedard first overall. It's your guy on your favorite team. Like, these leagues are more enjoyable when you've got your own dudes. So picking Matthews with the 5th overall pick made some sense. But then as soon as we got to the 2nd round, Bailey's draft just started to get wild, and wild in a good way. I think like all these players that Bailey got are very talented, and Adam Fantilli is one of them. So he, I think we found out that he's going to be playing with the Blue Jackets this year, whether that be in the typical Mike Babcock 13, 14 minutes a game for a talented rookie like Fantilli, we don't know. But regardless, I feel like the ceiling and the future is very bright for Adam Fantilli. So picking him in the 2nd round might be a questionable decision. But again, I think that this draft, you just got to get your guys. And this is a perfect example of that. I feel like if Fantilli hits, and we're talking in 2 years, maybe it's not even a question. Maybe it's like, oh yeah, Adam Fantilli or Matty Beniers, it's no question. Adam Fantilli's better. Like, none of that would surprise me. But, I mean, we were talking about Smell picking a bunch of older guys for making a run this year. I mean, maybe Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Mika Zibanejad, and guys like that were, and William Nylander in the 3rd round were maybe that was his intention there. But I love his prospect system. I feel like his farm is probably top 3 or 4 in this league. I mean, David Juracek is one of the best defensive prospects in hockey. He got Zach Benson, who's unbelievable. He got Dustin Wolf, a top 5 goalie prospect. Just David Reinbacher, top 5 pick this year. Prospect system is loaded with first rounders over the years. So I feel like Bailey definitely had an interesting top half of the draft, but as it got forward and we really got to see some of his emphasis on younger players and prospects, that he's going to be a very good team and a good owner in this league for a long time. And I think he had some very interesting picks.
And Connor.
So I think Bailey had 2 very clear strengths in this draft and 1 potential weakness. A recurring theme is nailing the first 4 to 6 picks, and I think out of the first 6, I absolutely love 5 of them. Austin Matthews, Fantilli, Nylander, Mika Zibanejad in the 5th round, I think is a steal, even though he is a little bit older than a lot of the players drafted ahead of them. And then Martin Nikas, a very talented young player on the Hurricanes. I think that's just a great top 6. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I'm not as much of a fan of, but whatever. And then the farm, as Bracken mentioned, is terrific. Juracek, Wolf, Pelletier, all very productive. The one concern I think I have with Bailey's team is that with Height's draft, I mentioned there's kind of a shortage of quality defensemen, and the first major league player that was defense was picked in round 8. I think that might have been the latest out of any of these drafts, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm very curious if there are going to be any follow-up grades to improve that position. But in terms of the farm, the forwards, I think this is a really impressive showing for Big Mish.
Yeah, B-Mish. I was going to say Bailey. I mean, getting Matthews at 5, I think, is tremendous value. I was also considering him at 3. You know, he's obviously, I think, a year or 2 or maybe 2 years younger than Draisaitl. But, you know, getting your guys most important. Adam Fantilli at 2, you know, this is a part of that, like, you know, this is our first time doing a combined draft. I didn't know where he was going to go. I was targeting him maybe like a 3rd or 4th round, kind of where, like, I mean, I chose Beniers there. I mean, Fantilli, if you want a player comp, he's probably a better form of Eichel in his prime. So it's like, all right, you're getting a better Eichel at like age whatever, like 19, 20, however, you know, he's super young. So he got his guy. Fantilli's probably untouchable in this league until he gets older. So I don't hate it. I just, you know, it was just so hard to gauge where he was going to go. So in the end, I mean, he has Fantilli now, and now the center core is Matthews, Fantilli, who are young, and then, you know, Mika Zibanejad, who can help him win this year. I don't like the Nuge pick. I mean, I'm going to praise and gush over the rest of his picks, so I'll give him one bad one. Is I don't get the Nuge one. I guess it's to help win this year. He is an Edmonton merchant, so I'm going to say that right now. But I love William Nylander on the 3rd round as well. You know, gives him a younger winger on a good Toronto team. Obviously, Mika Zibanejad. I probably would have picked maybe a tad bit later because of the age thing, but I mean, he's still going to be a 30 to 40 goal scorer and a point per game player on a good team. I was considering Marty Necas with my Dylan Larkin pick around that range, so I knew he was going to get picked right away. Good young player, Carolina. You've mentioned Juracek, top defensive prospect in hockey. Yeah, the only weakness, again, is the defenseman. You know, Chikrin gets hurt too much. I don't like Sean Thursday that much. But, I mean, he's got some young guys with upside. I love Cam York. Rasmus Sandin showed some flashes. He ended up trading me Ryan Backer, so I'm not going to count that one. I like Gabe Velarde in the 21st round. You know, I think he's going to have a big role in that Winnipeg team after the trade. I love his, you know, the prospects. And I'm going to say this, like, I couldn't believe, you know, I have been so high on Zach Benson. I knew about him about 2 years ago before he was even a thought in the draft. Found him early, thought I could get him in that 10th, 11th range. I ended up taking Ovechkin over him, which, again, like, I know he's never going to be Ovechkin, so that's safe to say. But I would have loved to have him, and I'm kind of realizing I'm probably never going to get him. Bailey valued him really high, and, you know, looking back on it, I was thinking maybe taking him over 1 or 2 of my other picks that I had. And so I think Benson is probably going to be a top 5 player from this loaded draft, and he's going to be on Buffalo, obviously, which is a very good young team. So Bailey, you know, slam dunk, hit a home run with Zach Benson in the 11th round, and Dustin Wolf too, top probably 4 goalie prospect at this point, or top 5 in all of hockey. And then we have one other steal I'll say, at least for this year. I kind of like Tyler Toffoli, 15th round. I know, you know, with the young players that are available, but he's going to pop off the Devils this year. He's probably going to pop 40 goals. He'll probably be with them for a little bit, so I like that pick as well. But yeah, Bailey is set. I really like this team. Top 4 farm in the league. Can win now. Just needs to upgrade the decor. But, I mean, the prospects are there. And please trade me Zach Benson.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the 6th pick in the draft, and that was Hendog and the Danbury Trashers. Right? Is that it? I got the name right? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Danbury Trashers. Very interesting draft for Hen. Connor, I'll let you go first for this one.
So you know the gif of the skinnier dog that just keeps nodding its head like yes?
Yes.
So that's what immediately comes to mind with Hen's draft, because looking at every single one of these first few picks, it just seems like a pure value or a smart pick in the context of where it happened. Jack Hughes at 6, I don't think anyone's going to question that. Igor getting picked 2 rounds after Sorokin did, that seems very smart. Noah Dobson to get the franchise defender. And Nick Suzuki in the 7th round, I'd really like to point out, I think that's just an absolute steal. So very young, talented player. So I'm very impressed. And then there's still no shortage of good prospects. Olin Zellweger, a defenseman for the Ducks. Askarov, the pick after, to beef up the young goalies even more. Looking further down, Victor Hedman, in what round is this? Like the 10th or the 11th? That's pretty good value. Shingoti's Berry in the 20th. I'm currently looking at the grid for Fantrax, so seeing the round. Oh, the 24th round. Whoops. So I think these are really good picks, and I think
So for
10
context,
really had a
Hendog
good
and I made a
value
trade
draft, and we'll see
during
how
the
that plays
draft
out during the
because
actual
we
regular season.
decided it would be worth it.
And
We
bracket.
trusted each other enough here that none of us would go back on our word. Hendog actually got Brady to Chuck instead of Kyle Connor in the second round, and I got Kyle Connor and Yaroslav Askarov in the 9th round. So Hendog's draft looks a little different after we factor that in. But regardless, my keys to this whole draft going into it, where you have to nail your first 4 picks. Jack Hughes, Brady Tkachuk, Andrei Svechnikov, and Igor Shesterkin is a unbelievable first 4. I think that core of those 4 guys are going to lead Hen's team for a long time, because I don't. For those that don't know, and for those that weren't in the old league, Hendog I feel like had a pretty similar core in the other league, where he kind of relied on 5 or 6 guys to take him, while the rest of his team either was kind of mid or not ready yet with a bunch of high upside. And I feel like he did that a lot in this draft too. I don't think Hendog has a true number 1 defenseman of the future. I know he's got Victor Hedman and Morgan Riley, but they're a bit on the older side. Maybe Dobson and Bouchard can develop into those guys, but I feel like that's definitely a weakness for his team, is this defense. I know he would agree with me on that. I feel like we've had that conversation before, that he didn't draft a defenseman until the 5th round. So definitely that's an area to improve upon, in my opinion. However, he did get a lot of those guys that I was talking about earlier, where like a bunch of high upside, maybe not ready yet. But Wyatt Johnson's going to be the 2 center in Dallas this year, perhaps. And if he can do that, that would be a really big jump. And he got him in the 11th round, so that could be good. Drake Batherson, there's a lot of question marks surrounding the 2018 World Junior Team investigation, but if he's cleared, then that's something to monitor, and that could be someone of interest on an Ottawa team that people think has a lot of promise. But if not, then we'll see if his hockey career is even allowed to continue. That's a big question mark, and that was a pretty high draft pick. Ken picked him in the 12th round ahead of prospects like Dustin Wolf and Ryan Leonard and legit guys like Mason McTavish. So maybe that was a missed opportunity there if there's something that happens with this investigation, but we'll see going forward. But more guys like that fit that same profile: Quentin Byfield, Tyler Bertuzzi in his first year with Toronto, playing with Austin Matthews and potentially Mitch Marner or William Nylander. That could be somebody that could produce a lot in the 19th round. Jack Quinn's going to miss a lot of time this year, but having him drop to the 23rd round is unbelievable value. So I feel like Hendog kind of replicated his strategy with the old league, where he gets 5 or 6 great players, and the rest of them could be good to great with some good development. I think he got a very solid prospect system, probably upper half of the league. So we'll see where Hendog goes here. But I mean, when we talk about first 4s, I don't know if there's a better one. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, Hughes, Kachuk, Svechnikov, Igor. I mean, the only one for me, I know Svechnikov had the bad injury, but, before the injury, he had such high upside. Just absolutely nasty first 4. Obviously, I mean, I think Igor's the most valuable goalie right now in fantasy. So getting him in the 4th round, great value. Dobson, I think is okay. I love Evan Bouchard this year. Everyone's predicting him to really explode, with Edmonton being the power play quarterback now that Barry and Darnell Nurse isn't going to be doing anything. So getting Evan Bouchard in the 6th round, I think is pretty good value. He was a guy I had high on my board. You guys mentioned Suzuki. Owen Zellweger's his guy. So big to get him. Vince Dunn, a little of it an underrated pick. I bought low on him on the other league. He exploded. He's now like the 1D in Seattle on that good team. I love that a lot. It's just interesting too, because his prospects to me are really good. Andrew Crystal I love, but it's just funny him taking Crystal over Quentin Byfield. even though Byfield probably, obviously a higher caliber prospect than Chris Stoll, and still getting both. Just kind of funny to see. Matt Savoy, obviously, he's got the upside in Buffalo. Me and Hen are big with Byron Bader, who's our favorite prospect analyst and expert on Twitter. So me and him were just draining just the entire prospect pool of just Byron Bader, gems. Lane Hudson is most notorious one. But Mikhail Gulyayev of Colorado, he's super high on. That's a guy I really like. Colorado got a steal there. He sniped Lucas Dragicevic for me from Seattle, a really good defensive prospect that could potentially lead Seattle power play in the future. He got Seamus Casey, who I like on the Devils. Even a little bit later on, I'm trying to see. There was one more. Nikita Chibrikov was a funny name in our other league. And yeah, kind of similar at the end, too. He got some players that are sort of gap, I guess, for this year. Like he got like a Anze Kopitar, who's still going to be good for a year or two. Alex Killorn, I guess. I'm not sure about Alex Killorn, but Anze Kopitar I love. Scott Lawton's okay. Kevin Hayes and Jonathan Quick in the later rounds as well, too. Just guys to help for this year. I also like Eric Gustin a lot on the Rangers this year. I think he's going to do pretty well. So I think Hen, long story short, had a very, very good draft. Again, me and him follow Byron Bader, so we got all of his dudes, and half of them are mine, half of them are his, really. So I love what he did. And yeah, I think he is going to be a playoff team this year at the bare minimum with this core he's constructed. So let's go on to the next one. I believe this is Paul, right? The Gotham City Jokers. Oh, that's a tough
Yeah,
name.
so I know we mentioned
so
that
Paul and the
I made a
Gotham
trade
City
with
Jokers
Hendog to move back in the
obviously
second
was the
round
7th overall
picks, and
pick
Paul was
in
sandwiched
this
in
year's
between
draft.
us.
And Braxton, I'll
And
let you
he
go first.
picked the guy that I would have picked with that next pick with Mitch Marner. I mean, I went and didn't get a big Leaf this draft, which is unfortunate because I am a Leafs fan. So Paul picking Mitch Marner in the second round, he had him in the last league. I think he picked him in the first round, but absolutely lethal pairing of right wings with Pasternak and Marner in the first two picks. I think that's probably the best wing pairing in the league that we've discussed so far. So props to Paul on that. And then he got Braden Point, Nico Hischier after that. I mean, all in terms of first four did a very good job in my opinion. But again, neglecting defense until the fifth round, I think kind of hurt him. Josh Morrissey is his best defenseman. I don't know how that's. I'm not quite sure. I like Josh Morrissey a lot, but I don't know whether you can win with him being your best defenseman. I mean, he got Brandon Montour, which I'm not sure he has another season like this year, and might be a one-time thing. I'm not a big Darnell Nurse fan. I'm not a big Philip Hronik fan, and he didn't really get any big-time defense prospects to fill that void or to help in the near future. So I think, like Hendog, Paul's defense is something that can be improved on. I also think that his goaltending outside of Alexander Georgiev might need some work. But I think he took a lot of risks this draft, too. Like Brandon Hagel in the 8th round kind of surprised me. JT Miller, maybe he's hoping for a big-time rebound if the Canucks maybe pick a direction here and either trade him to a contender or try to get some win-now pieces in that could get him up to 80, 90-point JT Miller like he once was. Like Hendog too, I think he's got a lot of guys that are young that could make the jump into something unique. Like Marco Rossi has been having his struggles, but if he comes in this year and plays a full-time role with Minnesota, we might be able to see. Casey Middlestat played really well under Don Granato this year, so I know a lot of people like him. I mean, there's always name value guys like Capo Caco, who, if he decides to wake up ever and be the number 2 overall pick that everyone expects him to be, maybe that might work out. Like, Paul's got 4 or 5 big-time lottery tickets here that if they hit could completely change the way we look at this team in a very short amount of time. I don't love the rest of his prospects outside of the obvious ones. He traded me Dmitry Simashev, which was my favorite prospect that he had, actually. He has guys like Denton Matachuk, but I think that was his first prospect, and he took him in the 17th round. So Paul decided not to look really too heavily at prospects and defense, but it pays in the other areas. I think he's got very good wings and some decent centers to work with. So we'll see about Paul's team. I don't know whether he's a playoff team decisively from looking at this roster on paper, but he's definitely got some guys that, if he made it in, were because of those late round picks that I discussed. So Paul's an interesting watch for sure.
And Connor.
So Paul and I think, drafted similarly. We're not as hockey focused. Right now, I'm doing a pod with a future NHL GM and someone who's going to call a Stanley Cup playoff game. So when you're going by the books, I think some of the resources, Jobber, ESPN, kind of had defensemen rated lower. And obviously, prospects may not rank as highly as some of the people who have performed in the NHL for years. So both of our drafts kind of have a similar trajectory in that. Pasternak and Marner is just a disgusting combo of forwards. I'm very high on Braden Point, so I think that's a terrific follow-up in this draft. John Tavares in the 11th round, that's exactly where you pick John Tavares, given the age, but just strength. Marco Rossi, I still believe in the 13th round. And when you're focused on younger 26 to 28-year-old talent, sometimes the farm is going to fall back a bit just given the later picks. But I still think there's a lot of promise here. I think Paul is going to be a playoff team, but I think the first 3 or 4 weeks are going to really determine what direction this team needs to take in terms of win now trades versus trying to restock the farm a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll just immediately go to the point that if you're going to punt defense and prospects, this is the exact way with your first 4 picks that you have to do it. I think he hit on all 4 of the first 4 picks. I mean, David Pasternak, unbelievable player. I mean, he was a top 5 player in hockey last year and still, getting into his prime. I mean, you talk about Mitch Marner, Point, Keisher. So that part is settled. I love Josh Morrissey. He's not a 1D to me on a fantasy team, so I think Paul's probably going to have to address that somewhat soon. Georgiev is good in this scoring, so I know obviously there were a lot of better players available in that 6th round, but he got his goalie that could help for this year. But yeah, I mean, guys like Miller, Hagel, Montour, Tippett, Nurse, Tavares, these guys I think could go one of 2 ways this year. So there's a lot that's riding on that first 5 weeks, like you mentioned, Connor, that, he's going to have to make a decision about some of them. If they really aren't producing, he should probably sell some of them off for prospects to replenish. But I love Marco Rossi. I really was high on him last year. He just hasn't really had the opportunity. Minnesota's in a terrible cap crunch, so he's going to have to get a lot of playing time eventually. I like Kirill Marchenko in the 14th round. I'm pretty high on Denton Mateychuk. I know it probably shouldn't have been his first prospect, but I still like him as a prospect overall. Kako could explode eventually. I think this year he's actually going to have a pretty good year. He really played well towards the end of last year. And I think, this could be the year he kind of takes over, maybe becomes a 50 to 60 point player, which, God, I hope he does, because it's been really sad to watch so far. Alex Newhook, honestly, in the 27th round, we shit on him all the time, but I think him getting traded to Montreal is a good fit compared to Colorado, can really take on a bigger role there, is young. I love Gavin Brindley as a prospect, the 28th round, great pick. Taking Hedel and Kane, my 2 Rangers, or potentially, I guess, former Ranger if Kane's gone. I think Hedel is a pretty good fantasy asset. For some reason, he does well in the scoring. I know he had a super hot stretch last season and then kind of cooled off, but I still like him as a pretty good, potential building block. And if Patty Kane comes back for the Rangers at some point this season, and if he ends up going to the Rangers, he's going to put up a lot of points still playing with, Panarin, Fox, and Zibanejad. The only other thing I'll mention later on, Tyler Boucher going the 42nd round is funny. That was a guy still has name value, even though he may not be the greatest hockey player in the world. I like, where is he? I like later on, I'm not sure if he's still on the team anymore, but I like Dominic Kubalik in the 46th round. I know he's not a big name and people have kind of soured on him, but he's a guy I'm still somewhat high on. He's supposed to explode a little bit on Detroit, didn't really do that much, but I think Ottawa is going to take on a little bit of a bigger role, especially if Batherson goes out because of his whole Hockey Canada situation. So Paul had an interesting draft. I'll say that for sure. he nailed the first 4 picks, and I think the rest are all going to be determined in that next couple weeks of the season to start off in. But I mean, Paul's got plenty of assets to work with,
So
and
when I woke up
definitely
on
ways to
draft
rack
day,
up wins pretty
had
early with
heart set.
that
I was
core.
picking Elias
Now,
Pettersson,
moment of
8th
truth.
overall.
Let's
Like
go to
that was
Bracton and the Virginia Beach
my goal.
Neptunes.
That was
I'll
who
let
I
you
was
go first,
targeting.
Bracton,
That
about
was
your
who I
team
was going to
overall.
get, and I had my heart set. When the first 5 picks went, I thought to myself, like, hey, like, I might want to rethink this a little bit because I know myself and how I draft and everything. And I probably, if I didn't pick Cale Makar 8th overall, I wasn't going to pick a defenseman until the 6th round. And, like, if we were talking about some of these teams that decided to maybe punt defensemen early on, I don't think I want to do that, especially given what we just saw out of Erik Karlsson this year. I think that might be the new normal for some of these offensive defensemen, where 100 points seasons from defensemen that have that offensive upside, like Rasmus Dahlin, like Cale Makar, like Adam Fox. I don't think that's going to be uncommon anymore. I think that might turn into what we not maybe not the new normal, but for some of these elite guys, I feel like that could happen more often than not. So that decision kind of came down to that for me. If I wanted somebody that I felt like could put up 100 points, I might as well have them in a defense slot instead of a forward slot, knowing that I could be more flexible to pick forwards going later in the draft. So Brady Tkachuk was my second round pick. I traded him for Kyle Connor and Yaroslav Askarov. I decided to do the same thing I talked about earlier with goalies, where I decided to punt goalie a little bit to go with tandem on a good team. But Yaroslav Askarov is somebody that I think could be in that Devin Levi, Jake Ottinger conversation within a couple years. So getting him and Kyle Connor for Brady Tkachuk, I felt like was a good idea. But then I was faced with the dilemma in the 3rd round whether I wanted a center or a winger. I ended up going with Jack Eichel, thinking I could get Cole Caulfield on the turn, but Connor sniped me 1 pick before, and please trade me Cole Caulfield going forward. That would be appreciated. So I like Eichel, I like Zegras, and then back when I was talking earlier about picking my guys and just really making sure I get who I wanted, I kind of decided that I wanted prospects and to focus a lot of my attention on that. So my 5th and 6th round picks were Logan Cooley and Matvei Michkov. Those were 2 of my top 4 prospects going into it, and I really wanted to get one or both of them, so I ended up picking them both. Logan Cooley has been on and off. We didn't know whether he was going to go back to school or come to Arizona, but later in the draft, we found out that he was going to sign and play with the Coyotes this year, so it made me feel really good about myself after that pick. I think that Logan Cooley could have a big rookie year and probably get a Calder nomination, maybe not win it because of Connor Bedard, but definitely be in that conversation. And Matvei Michkov is one of the most electrifying young players in all of hockey, I think. Even though he might not be in Philadelphia for a while, he just does cool things every day. Like if you scroll on Twitter, even for a little bit, he has a highlight reel play every day in the KHL right now. I know it's only preseason and there's a 3-on-3 tournament going on, but this kid's going to be really special, and I definitely wanted to be a part of that. And I think big strength of my team is defense. I invested heavily in young number 1 defensemen like Zach Werenski and Makar, obviously, but some of these prospects I think Pavel Mintyukov could develop into a 1. Simon Edvinsson maybe not because of Moritz Seider, but he could be a very high-end 2. Definitely, I like Tom Willander in Vancouver, and I guess we'll just see what else happens. But I love every single one of my prospects. I have 24 prospects right now after some trades that I made, and I feel like I definitely have a top 3 farm system in the league, and I definitely have some of the mix of guys that are young with high upside, like Juraj Slavkovsky, somebody I could see rebounding this year with a full, hopefully, year of full health and increased support in Montreal. Brock Besser with Vancouver, hopefully he has another big year. Spencer Knight maybe take back the crease in Florida from Sergei Bobrovsky on their great playoff run. Kirby Dach maybe developing in Montreal as well. And maybe Philip Zadina makes the most of his opportunity in San Jose and plays some top tier minutes with Thomas Hertl. Maybe I got a gym there too. So I feel like I got a mix of literally everything, and I really like where my team's at. So
And Connor.
So, at least in baseball, Brackton gets a reputation for valuing youth a lot, and I think this is the best possible outcome for doing that. Mikhail, Connor, Eichel, and Zegras and Cooley is just disgusting as a top five when you're trying to build from the ground up and make sure you have a sustainable team for a while. Mitch Pov is electric. Edmondson. I really enjoyed the 12th round pick of Johnny Gaudreau. I know he's been on the block a little bit since the draft, but I think that's just tremendous value. And the one pick that I think Brackton's expressed regret in, Linus Ullmark in the 16th round, has since been traded. So Kirby Doc in the 18th also, I think that's a very good value pick. Jamie Benn in the 28th. No picks that stand out for me that I really don't like. I don't know if this is going to be a playoff team year one, but that's almost by design when you're drafting top prospects in the first 10 rounds and hoping to have a dynasty for the following years.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, I mean, starting with the first round, I mean, Cale Makar, he's literally Bobby Orr, and he's like, what, 24, 25? So, I mean, I might have still taken Pedersen or Robertson there just because I know Pedersen has like the 120-point upside. But, I mean, Cale Makar is the best defenseman in hockey. He'll probably win like 5 or 6 Norths by the end of his career. So, you know, you really can't go wrong with it now that I really look back on it. So, I mean, again, because defense is so coveted, and I feel like, you know, me, you, a couple other teams have really prided ourselves on good defenses. It's such a positive to have, especially in like playoff matchups where maybe your forwards go cold and then your defense can literally carry you to winning a game or a matchup. And Cale Makar is really the defenseman to do that. So I love the pick now, looking back on it. Kyle Connor obviously has the upside. Eichel and Zegras. Obviously, Eichel, you know, won the cup, and he's still going to be an elite fantasy asset, I think, for a while. Zegras, again, is still, you know, one of the most exciting young players in the league. For some reason, hasn't put up a ton of points yet. I think that might come in a couple of years once he really gets into his prime. And I think once Anaheim gets better, he'll really start seeing it more. But for me, you know, I really wanted Logan Cooley. I didn't know where he was going to go. I was almost certain at picking him with my 5 picks before, I think. I had a pick between Dylan Larkin and him. I think I probably should have picked Cooley. That's maybe the one regret, even though I love Larkin and he's still super young. Logan Cooley is probably going to finish second in the Calder this year. You know, the school thing played a little bit into my mind, plus Arizona reeks. So I didn't know exactly what to do with that. But, I mean, Brackton getting Cooley and Michkov, probably the 2 best forward prospects in hockey. You know, that's a home run. I mean, Michkov, for people that don't know him, he's obviously going to take a while to get over, but, I mean, he's like Nikita Kucherov, and he might even be better than Nikita Kucherov. He's probably the best Russian prospect since Ovechkin. So in the 6th round, like, that's just absurd. So looking back on it, you know, especially when Michkov comes over, he easily should be like a top 1 to 2 round pick, probably in dynasty drafts. And getting him in the 6th round is just probably, I guess, probably this might be the steal of the draft. We're looking back on it. We'll see. I mean, hopefully he does come over, which I think he will. One thing I will say, though, which I'm not a big Zach Werenski guy. I think David Juracek could eventually be the one in Columbus. So I don't know what's going to really go on. I know Werenski a little bit more offensive, but I love Pavel Mentikov. I agree with you that he could be a one in Anaheim because I'm not big on Jamie Drysdale. I think he really has Olin Zellweger to compete with for that one spot. I love Simon Edmondson. He's going to be a great 2. You know how I feel about goal scorer, but I'm not going to talk about that one. I ended up trading for him. I like Pavel Buchnevich still. He's still relatively young. I love Matt Coronado a little bit later, a great prospect for the Flames. He's going to play a big role this year. My LinkedIn connection, Spencer Knight, I think is going to bounce back once Bobrovsky comes down to earth. Again, I think all the prospects, you know, I love Noah Oshlin. I think he could be a trade candidate, honestly, because Buffalo's so loaded. Liam Ogren, I like. Not a big Cody Glass guy, but I do like Owen Beck a little bit later on. Ethan Gauthier was a great pick. There's so many good prospects here that I like. I think Brack did super, super well with this draft. Again, a little bit on the younger side. I could see him maybe buying a little bit if the team starts off a little bit slower, just because, you know, maybe Cooley doesn't start off hot. Maybe he takes like 40, 50 games to really get going, especially because Arizona, it still reeks to me. Because I think Logan Cooley is going to be the wild card for him potentially being a playoff team this year. But I still think this is a team more than set for the future, could become a potential dynasty. And yeah, we'll see what he does the rest of the season. And let's now go on to Connor. Let's now do, I think it's the Rocky Mountain Extreme. I almost said vibes. I was thinking of baseball, so good thing I didn't say that. Connor, I'll let you go first.
So I got a piece of advice before the draft that was, when in doubt, don't overthink it. Pick the 26 to 28-year-old stud. And I think for the most part in my first 10 rounds, I'm very comfortable with how I did that. I had a top 5 to 6 pick grade on Jason Robertson, so getting him 9th overall was an absolute thrill. And then Kaprizov in the second round was a nice follow-up. I was on Voice with Brackton when I picked Cole Caulfield, and seeing his reaction to that choice was interesting. I had done a 4-sport Dynasty hockey league that did not fall over, and I know a lot of people raved about him, so was happy to have that. After the first 4 rounds, most of the first-tier defensemen were gone, so I had a strategy of picking a Norris Trophy contender in Dougie Hamilton, and then following up with the since trade Owen Power, who I think very highly of and is a top defensive prospect in hockey. Brock Faber to even more follow up the defense. I think he's a defensive dog. Carter Hart's the starting goalie. I'm not too happy about waiting that late, but I think there's a lot of potential there. And my prospect pool, because of waiting a little bit, has a lot to be desired, but I think there is a lot of potential, especially in the backgrounds I focused on. Defenseman Alex
Connor
Nikishin in the
is my
17th.
early
I think
favorite for one of my
very
favorite
happy with
drafts,
myself with
honestly.
the bout. So curious to see where the team goes, but overall,
the first
especially
20
in terms of my
picks that
forward
he made,
play, I'm
I think I
very
only
happy with
really
how.
dislike
And
2
Brackton.
of them, which is really outstanding. I mean, when we've been talking about how I personally have evaluated these drafts by first 4, I think Connor has the best first 4 in the league. Jason Robertson, Kirill Kaprizov, Sebastian Aho, and Cole Caulfield. That is just simply outstanding. But we were talking about defense, and Dougie Hamilton as your 1 is definitely a bit on the older side. However, he's a very legitimate defenseman. I really like watching him play. We go to a lot of Devils games at Seton Hall, so Dougie Hamilton definitely is a standout player here. But the only pick that I really dislike was Alexis Lafreniere in the 8th round. I'm falling a little bit out of belief in him. I know John Haidt will disagree with me, but and I guess Connor because he picked him. But I think that the Rangers have very much stunted his development along with Capo Caco, and I don't know whether this new coach in Peter Laviolette will give him the opportunities that he needs to fully take over as a first or second line player and give him the minutes he needs to be successful. So I don't know. They might, if he does, that's a steal of the draft. Like if Alexis Lafreniere becomes the best winger prospect of our generation, like he was hyped up to be when the Rangers drafted him, then that's an absolute home run in the 8th round and could even be one of Connor's better selections, or one of the better selections in the draft if that actually works out. But Connor mentioned Brock Faber, huge fan. I think he's going to develop into something very special for Minnesota. Might even be their 1D going going forward and during the future. Carter Hart's a question mark given that 2018 World Junior team. The way the Flyers have been dealing with their goalies, it maybe seems like a suspension is coming. So maybe that's something to monitor. But I love a lot of these prospects. Logan Stankoven is unbelievable. Alexander Nikishin, I know a lot of people are very high on. Yuri Kulich is a dog. Maverick Bork is a dog. Like Connor has a very, very interesting team and has a lot of guys that I would clump into the column of like maybe he gets something out of late round picks that could have some very high upside. I'm a Jesse Puljujarvi believer. Like Lafreniere, I don't believe he's been given a lot of chances. I think he just needs to be in a place where people and a team could believe in him and give him some upside, maybe like what Philip Zadina is doing in San Jose, where he's projected to play on the first line with the team's best players. I definitely think he has the talent, and getting him in the 40th round is definitely very, very interesting. So props to Connor. I like his team a lot. I think he's a playoff team for sure, and interesting to see how he manages the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always honest with you, Connor. I mean, I think you killed this draft, especially for it, you said not having the hockey knowledge that maybe some of us do have. Like, it doesn't seem like it on paper because, like, I mean, Robertson, Kaprizov, Aho, Caulfield. I think the only one that's close to that is me, I guess, Hen. I mean, I'm not going to say mine because I'm biased, but Paul was really really good. We didn't get the Cody's yet, and Fenrir's, but I mean Robertson, I was considering at 3. Kaprizov, I know is a little bit on the older side, but he's still going to be good for a while, and he's electric. Aho, Caulfield, home runs. The Dougie Hamilton pick, I just for me, Luke Hughes is going to take over that power play within a year or two to me. So that's the only thing. But I think at least for this year, though, it's going to help the playoff run. He's still going to be the one this year. I don't see him moving out of that this year unless he really falls off and then Luke Hughes explodes. Kevin Fiala in the 7th round, I like a lot. Kind of a weird player, but still middle age, but still can really play well on that LA team. Laugh, I'll get you someday. I mean, I thought he was going to go a little bit later because I know everyone pretty much hates him except me. I mean, he's my favorite Ranger. He probably will always be it until he at least he retires unless someone else comes up. But I love the guy. The Rangers have butchered his development. It's a fact. I'm convinced if him and Tim Stützle switch spots, he'd be the guy exploding on Ottawa, and Stützle would be crapping it with the Rangers. So that's just the way I see it. Travis Konechny, who I've been kind of low on for a while. I like it in the 9th round. That's kind of the spot where I think he should have went. I like that. I love Brock Faber. Stankoven, I actually ended up trading for him. So, I mean, I love Logan Stankoven. Cole Perfetti, my birthday buddy. Love him. And Alexander Nikishin was a guy I really had on my radar. Kind of got sniped on the second wraparound for that. Love the pick. Barrett Hayton Reeks. I'm sorry, Connor. That's the one bad pick for me. That's a Tyler Merchant pick right there. But you followed up with Yuri Coolidge, who's an absolute home run on a Buffalo team that's going to be really good. Looking at else down the draft, Arseny Gritsuk in the 30th round. I love that guy on the Devils. He could be a player in a couple of years when he comes over. Philip Bystedt is another home run pick for me in the 38th round, a guy that I really wanted. Hopefully you trade me him as well someday. Maybe that could be a little him and laugh package. Love him a lot. And just at the very end, there was one other guy, just kind of a funny pick. I was like, oh, do I take Anthony Beauvillier? He's like projected to be on like Vancouver's like first line and first power play this year because they're supposed to stink. Getting him in the 48th round, like almost like in the waiver range, but not enough. I kind of like that pick, just that you're able to maybe get something out of him. And for those who know Bobby Steiner classic right there, leaving the island to go to Vancouver. So next up on the docket, and the one last thing I'll say, I mean, I think Connor is a playoff team. I mean, that's pretty safe to say, at least right now. We'll see what he does the rest of the season, and how he really addresses. Honestly, the goalie situation is the only problem I really have with this team. There's Carter Hart and
I don't know
Matt
whether
Sothar.
Lewis
I'm
is
not really
nervous
big
going
on.
into this or not,
And
but
there was one
he
other
definitely
goalie.
settled in.
I mean,
After
Jack
his
Campbell
first
as well.
3.
But
He was
I mean,
killing
goalies
it.
are as long as you have a 10.
Tkachuk, I know he didn't expect to be there.
Let's
at
go on
10,
to Lewis.
definitely made the right decision there. I think he's an absolute dog. I wish he had united the Chuck brothers and just said fuck the world, like let me run with those two guys, but he didn't. He picked Mikko Rantanen, who's another amazing player. Moritz Seider is a legitimate number 1 defenseman. But then after the 3rd round, there were definitely some question marks. I'm not a big Mikhail Sergachev fan. Maybe he becomes that 1D when Victor Hedman leaves or retires, but I mean, Hedman still has some good years left in him, I think. So by that time, Sergachev might be on that older side. I think he's a very legitimate 2, but when there were ones like Charlie McAvoy and Noah Dobson available, I would have potentially leaned one of them other than Mikhail Sergachev. But Louis investing in Florida. Alexander Barkov in the 5th round. I think that was a really good pick. Very, very interesting that he decided to go that route. But I love Shane Wright in the 7th round. I think that could potentially be a steal of the draft candidate if he develops. I think he's going to have a similar development track than Matty Beniers did. And if that's the case, Calder nomination this year doesn't seem so far out of the picture if he plays those amount of games. I think Patrick Laine in the 8th round is really interesting, given the influx of talent that Columbus brought in this year. Perhaps Laine getting some good minutes playing with some really talented players like Fantilli and Kent Johnson and Johnny Gaudreau, maybe a full healthy season from him, hopefully, could be a really interesting development. I hate Thomas Chabot. I think he's fucking horrible, and Louis traded him for Owen Power, who I do like, so that was a really good trade for Louis, I think. What do you call it? Thatcher Demko in the 10th round as your backup goalie. I did not expect Louis to take 2 goalies in the first 10 rounds. I didn't think anybody was going to do that, but if there was a person to do it might as well be Louis, who loves his goalies. So, got really upset when he took Matthew Nyes in the 12th round. I thought I was going to get him a little later, but he's going to be a player this year for the Leafs that is going to be draw some big time attention depending on where he can play. I see him in Toronto's top 6 for sure this year. He's got some interesting prospects that I like in Connor Geeky. I know he traded Marco Kasper, but at the time I thought that was one of his better prospects. And then Louis picked some good goalie prospects, as he always does, in Drew Comesso, Sebastian Cossa, and Lucas Dostal. We expected Louis to have strong goaltending because he made it a priority in the last league, and I think he accomplished that. I think he has better forwards in this league than he did in the last league, but at an expense of his defense, which was definitely a strength of his team in the last league. I don't know if Louis is a playoff team this year, but I definitely think he has a better roster now than he did in our other league, and I think he's got a lot more higher upside talent on this team. So I think he definitely improved, and I think he had a solid draft.
And Connor.
I like Louis' draft. Kachuk at 10 is just an absolute value play in a league that seems that like it's going to be starving for defensemen. Sider and Sergachev back-to-back are a little bit risky, just given, as Bracken said, the upside of who's going to truly be the one defenseman. But I think that was smart. Shane Wright, hopefully he ends up being a dog in the 7th round, is par for the course, given that I think Hen and I were talking before the draft that we didn't expect prospects to go as high as they ended up doing. So that seemed pretty fair. Thomas Chabot ended up getting traded to me. I hope that, at least for fantasy purposes, he's going to do better than what Bracken thinks of him as an actual hockey asset. Alex Ovechkin in the 11th round is terrific. I do have to mention in the 35th round, Patrice Bergeron was drafted, who has since retired. But I also think the farm system does have some upside. So I'm really curious to see how Louis balances past and present, but very solid draft.
Yeah, I mean, especially early on, I was very adamant and vocal that I loved Louis' first couple of picks. Like, I mean, talk about Pastrnak, Marner. It's like that versus Chuck Granton and Robertson Kaprizov. Those are probably like, I mean, how do you even compare? I mean, Chuck Granton is so fucking good. Like, I don't even know if I picked that over Pastrnak. I don't even know which one to try to pick. But it's a home run for Louis. Most Siders well in 3rd round I love. I also not a big fan of the Sergachev pick. Just weird because, like, Hedman lost the 1 spot, then regained it, and Sergachev's been kind of around there. I just feel like for who was available, he could have taken a better player. But I love Barkov in the 5th. Vasilevsky, I know, is older, but like he's probably, I mean, Igor is probably most valuable goalie in Dynasty right now. Vasilevsky's probably still top 3. He's probably like after Sorokin. He might be ahead of Sorokin, honestly, despite the age, because Tampa's still Tampa. So, I mean, getting him and Demko is pretty nasty. I'm a little lower on Shane Wright than most, to be honest. I mean, I love taking him in the 7th round. I think Louis did the right thing there. I think just for me, for a fantasy player, he's not going to be. He doesn't have the upside of Cooley, first of all. I think Cooley's going to outscore him for a while in fantasy, is my perspective. And I think he'll probably be the 2C there as long as Beniers is there. I think that's Beniers' team now. But, I mean, taking the 7th round, I think is still tremendous value. He's probably going to be just a really, really good 2-way center. Just don't know he's going to might ever be a 100-point guy. He's got to hope he will be a point per game player, kind of similar to what Nico Fisher for his career. Line was a guy I wanted. Also was nice to me last summer. I wanted to get him. I think he's going to be great on Columbus this year as long as he stays healthy. Braxton despises Shabbat, but for some reason he is good in fantasy. So 9th round Shabbat isn't bad. I think anything earlier would have been bad. So I don't hate 9th round Shabbat. I ended up getting Ovechkin. So Louis actually got Cutter Gauthier, which is a dog. I'm a little lower on Connor DP than most as well, but I think Marco Casper obviously kind of were lower on last league. But now that I'm looking at the Detroit farm system, kind of like him and Danielson are going to be the guys going forward. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do this season. I do like it a little bit better now. It's like 14th round Casper is completely fine to me. I love what he did with his goalies. The goalie prospects all have upside. I actually do like Lucas Donskoy a lot. 26th. Patrice Bergeron, there's nothing you could have done about that. I'm all for taking a shot in the 35th round for him, so I don't think that hurts him that much. I think taking Jack Hughes, Mickey Mouse Jack Hughes in the 48th round as well as Hunter Height. Shout out. I've just fun to see it. So I think Louis did phenomenal for this draft. I agree with Greg. His roster is better. Defensive core might be the reason he doesn't make the playoffs this year, but I still think he probably is a playoff team. But how do you stop Chuck, Rantanen? Those guys are just absurd. Kachuk, Rantanen, and Vasilevsky is the best way to put it.
Fenrir's team to me
win you a week without any other point.
The most
I love
interesting team in the league.
Great job, Lewis.
Hands down.
Let's go on.
I think
that I love this,
he killed his first four.
The Vancouver Caravans,
Pedersen,
Fenrir,
Tim Stützle, Quinn Hughes, and
stop
Luke
my
Hughes.
news writing. I'll do it in a
Just
little bit.
Exceptional. I think
Bracknell,
Luke Hughes is going to develop into the 1D that everybody thinks. We got to see him play a little bit this year in New Jersey, and he just was noticeably good in the limited amount of times that he was playing. But he definitely had some moments in some crucial situations that I think will only get better. I think Quinn Hughes played very well in the games that Rick Tocchet was there. So maybe under a full season of Rick Tocchet, Quinn Hughes could take a leap and be asserting himself into that second tier of number one defenseman. I think that Elias Pettersson will be one of the best players in the NHL this year. I think he had a huge season last year that solidified himself as a top 10 player in the league. I think that he was definitely in consideration for me at 1-8. So when Fenrir asked for my opinion, I told him that Pettersson's a special player, and I really, really like him and think that the sky's the limit for him. Same thing with Tim Stützle. Even though I'm not a huge fan of what Ottawa's doing, nor do I think that the Senators are going to be a playoff team this year, I don't think that will impact Tim Stützle's fantasy value, nor will that stop him from being a very good point producer in the NHL this year. So a lot of people are low on Matt Barzal. I am not. I don't understand why Matt Barzal gets a lot of hate. I think that he is probably the best player the Islanders have had since prime John Tavares. I think that he is the best player on the team right now. Even though I drafted Bo Horvat later on, I think that Matt Barzal is that guy. And I think that when he has a full year of him being healthy and a full year of Lane Lambert's system and playing with Bo Horvat and all the situations and everything needs to happen for him with the Islanders this year, I think that Matt Barzal is going to have a big year, and that's something we need to pay attention to. Jesper Bratt, not a huge fan of Jesper Bratt. I think that he will have another solid year this year, but I'm worried that it was a contract year fluke type thing where he just played out of his mind and he might come back down to earth this year. But if that's the case, he drafted two of the best prospects in hockey in Leo Carlson, sorry, not Lucas. Leo Carlson and Will Smith. I think that those guys are outstanding. I think Kevin Korchinski's outstanding. This to me is a top three farm system when we talk about guys like Gabe Perreault, Alex Holtz, Matthew Wood. Just this prospect farm system is littered with top 100 guys. Like just every prospect he has, I like for the most part. And I think he got some really good value picks in here too. Like I was trying to find it. Vitek Vanacek in the 21st round. If the Devils are really going to win the Metropolitan Division and not make a trade for a goalie, Vitek's the one. and I think that he's going to have another big year. So just some incredible picks, incredible team. I think Fenrir's going to have a very nice year, and if he doesn't, then he's got prospects on the way that are going to solidify him as a dynasty here for a while. So good draft for Fenrir, absolutely outstanding.
And Connor.
Yeah, this might be one of my favorite top 10 picks. Patterson, Stutzel, Hughes, Barzell, Brad. I think they could all be justified as taken earlier. And that's just a really solid, productive core. And then the farm system is very good. I think if there's one concern with this team, it's the goalies game. Logan Thompson in the 11th round is a little bit later than a lot of teams drafted. So that could be something to address going forward. But there are also a lot of value picks. I absolutely love Matthias Maselli in the 16th round. I think he could really be productive for the Coyotes. Brent Burns a couple rounds later, a little bit on the older side, but still very productive and could help move the cover for a year or two while the farm gets better. Vitek Vanacek, as already mentioned. Yeah, I think this is just a deep farm system, and there is enough value picks later to be in light playoff contention or have the opportunity to buy into that as we get into the season.
This team is a definition of, just getting your guys no matter where they are. And now when you look at this team after the draft, it doesn't even matter where some of these dudes were taken. Like, getting the Hughes brothers is just, I love it. I didn't think anyone would do that. I didn't know when Carlson with Smith were going to go. I really wanted Smith. Carlson is obviously going to be really, really good too. Again, the same thing, stacking both of those guys. I think Fenrir absolutely killed this draft. The only pick in the top 10 I don't like, honestly, is obviously I'm lower on Barzell, but 5th round Barzell isn't bad compared to 3rd round Barzell. I don't like Ekblad, but every other pick is to me is like an A to an A plus. Barton, I love Korchinski. Bratt is Jesper Bratt. And then Stutzel and Pedersen is just nasty. Gabe Perreault, I didn't think he'd go that early. I wanted him bad. He's easily the best prospect on the Rangers. I don't think they're going to butcher him because a lot of the assistants on the Rangers now have ties to BC where he's playing this year. I think they're going to be really careful with him because he broke already, famous NHL players' record in the U.S. development program. So 15th round Perreault. I wanted him bad, and I'm going to be badgering Fenrir for him for a long time. Like you mentioned, Connor, I love Matthias Machelli in the 16th, Holtz 17th. I know we've been so flippy-floppy about him, but that's still good value, 17th round. Love Matthew Wood. This team is disgusting. I just think, for the future, it's beyond set. He can get a goalie. He could stream a goalie. Who cares? Like, this team is more than set for the future. One last team to talk about before we head on to the last 2 segments of the show, and it's the Milwaukee Admirals and the Cody Man. So, Connor, I'll let you go first.
You used the word disgusting to describe Fenrir's draft, and that's the first word that comes to mind with Cody's. I think as this was unfolding full time, we were all very impressed with how the commissioner of the other 2 leagues has handled this. Rasmus Dahlin at the top of the 2nd round was probably a really noticeable pick. Tage Thompson was the 1st rounder, so that's a really nice duo. I'm very high on Rupe Hintz, so I think that was a good 3rd rounder. Alex DeBrincat, hopefully even explodes even further after the trade, so gained him the 4th. Jordan Carew, super speedster, all very impressive first 5 picks, and I don't think the farm system really was that disregarded either. Brad Lambert in the 21st, I think, was really nice value. Zachary Rahu in the 27th. These are all people with upside. JJ Moser was also picked later. I was after him for a while in trades.
When we were looking at this unfold, like Connor said,
Overall,
without
great
question,
draft by Cody.
Cody
Juice
picking
Suarez is the
12th
goalie
had one of the
drafted a
best
little bit later,
drafts
but
in
still
this
high
complicated
quality.
format that we did.
I think this is a
Where
playoff
he
contender,
had
and
two
there's
picks in a
no
row,
selling
no
of the
real
future
trades. I don't think Cody
that
made a
had to be
trade
given
during the
for it.
draft to
And
move up
Braxton.
or down. He stuck with his spots, and I think he killed it. I think that I'm a big believer in the Buffalo Sabres, and getting the two biggest pieces on that team, I think certainly doesn't hurt, especially with them poised to take a big step this year and make the playoffs in the Atlantic in a heavily crowded Atlantic division. I think that Thompson and Dahlin are huge with that. I mean, he just kept picking all these elite players that somehow fell to him, like Rupe Hintz and Alex DeBrincat. He took some chances on Kent Johnson, Brant Clark, and guys that were former top prospects that may have fallen out of the picture a little bit, but will be up this year and remind everybody of who they were. I think that getting those guys in the 7th and 9th round were huge for him. Older guys like Erik Karlsson just got traded to Pittsburgh. That's huge. He's invested heavily in the Penguins here. You got Sidney Crosby, Tristan Jarry, and Erik Karlsson. That's going to be big if the Penguins can make a playoff run here. I think that they can. I think that they are a playoff team as of today. So if that's the case, then Cody got 3 really big contributors on that. He definitely has a lot of intriguing prospects. I don't think he has any top tier prospects like in the Logan Cooley, Matvey Michkov class, but I think he's got a lot of lower level, like B plus B level prospects that could develop into those A minus A type guys. Like I'm a big Jaeger fan. I like Axel Sandin Pellica. I think he's really talented. I like Brad Lambert. Just a lot of upside for Cody's team here with all around prospects and major league guys. So I already think he had a great draft picking 12th, but if some of these high upside guys turn into what they could be, Cody absolutely killed this even more than he already did, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, first thing I look at this team, like, I think after the first 8 rounds, I'm like, all right, this is at the minimum a playoff team, I think, for this year, based off, Thompson, Dahlin, Hintz, DeBrincat, Kyrou, to me, is just, I think, is unbelievable. I love Rupe Hintz, one of my favorite non-Rangers. Sucks to see him on other teams. Maybe we have to get him someday. But, I mean, yeah, like, he just really made the best of players just falling into his lap. I mean, Thompson Dahlin is disgusting. DeBrincat's going to have a big year, I think, in Detroit. Honestly, though, I mean, as a Rangers fan, the one pick that I was a little questionable on was Keandre Miller in the 6th round because he'll never be the one on the Rangers. But, I mean, he's obviously super young. He's got a lot of upside still. But then after that, I mean, Kent Johnson is a stud, another guy I wish I had. And then UC Saros, again, in the 8th round, kind of similar to my Connor Hellebuck situation, but I think his was better because he got UC Saros. 8th round Saros is unbelievable. Clark is a dog. I mean, Dawson Mercer's got upside. I think he drafted Carlson under the impression he was going to be a Shark, but I mean, now he's got 3 franchise Penguins cornerstones there. I love Braden Yeager. I love Santa Palika. I love Michael Herbal of the Arizona Coyotes, who's a good goalie prospect. The only miss of a prospect is Easton Count of Toronto, which we told him already, so I don't think he really cares. But yeah, Cody, I think the bare minimum is a playoff team. He always drafts well. He always just finds the best value when he finds players that are just uber elite and young at the same time. He does in every single league we're in with him. And yeah, props to Cody for being, a definitive, I think, already playoff team in year number 1. Could even win a chip with having, UC Saros and absolute studs. But we finally did all of the teams for this year's draft. So I think, we only do one more segment. We were going to talk about farm systems, but let's just do the deals. I think we kind of hit on all of the systems already. We'd just be repeating ourselves. So we're only going to talk about trades that happened after the draft. The ones that happened during were all just trade up, trade downs, under the table kind of stuff. So the first actual trade after the draft ended, me and you, Connor, I gave you David Perron, you gave me Jack Pert, and then we have a trade stip that you owe me a 25 fourth. If Perron scores 58 or more points, it's due at the end of the season. Connor, I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, so as a Blues fan in real life, I'm fully aware that Perron can, even in his older years, be productive. And quite frankly, my team
Yeah,
is
I
looking
think that
to
anyone
be
that
a playoff
I
contender
mean,
the
we were
first couple of
limited in the
years.
draft to
So
only 20
both the
prospect slots,
Perron and
and
Pert were
it's been a
drafted in
strategy of
relatively
mine
lower
and John
rounds, and I
Heights
think you
for
dropped Pert
every
for
league we've been
another
in to
prospect later. So it seemed
accumulate
like
as
a
many
really nice
prospects as
gamble
possible.
to get
So
additional
for
forward
guys
depth
that we
to
could maybe
help my
pick
team
up
as
a
some of
replacement
the
on
younger
waivers
forwards
that
develop.
could end up getting us an extra
And
prospect
Braxton.
slot, I don't think that what do you call it? It's that big of a gap between David Perron and somebody on the waiver wire. That so maybe I see what John Height was trying to do here. I see what Connor was trying to do. If you like somebody, go get them. And I like it for both sides, but John Height was kind of doing what I was trying to do when it came to just getting some prospects for people that may not be in our long term plans necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thought process. I know Connor really wanted Perron. I mean, he's still going to be good this year. So, I mean, on paper, he's winning the trade for this season easily. The guy I dropped Pert for is Nikolai Kovalenko of the Avalanche, who he's 23. He is a 6th-round pick. He's basically what Kuzmenko's going to be in a couple of years. He already signed a 2-year entry level with Colorado. So I'm super high on him. Another Byron Bader guy. So I'm excited for it. You know, it's a win-win for both sides. Now we got an actual big trade. Connor traded away me and Braxton's friend Owen Power and received Marco Casper, Eric Portillo, a 25-second and Thomas Shabbat. Lewis gets Owen Power. Connor, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I was definitely hoping to. I was happy with Power in the 6th round, and I 100% thought I put Power on the block just to see what I could get for a 21-year-old stud muffin. And I honestly thought that he was going to go to Cody for the longest time. Cody was offering a very good package that mostly started with Brant Clark, another young defenseman who I like. And then, kind of at the 12th hour, Lewis came out of nowhere and offered Thomas Shabbat, Marco Casper, and a dude I'd never heard of with a high
Although
pick.
I'm not the
So
biggest
the
Thomas
fact
Shabbat
I
fan in
know
the world,
Shabbat is definitely not does
there's
not have the
definitely
ceiling
fantasy
that Power
value that he
does,
does
but
have.
getting Casper
Being the number
and what's
one
going to be a
defenseman
top
on a team,
24 pick
I
in
don't think
next
Owen
round's
Power
draft,
will be
along
that
with
number one
a
defenseman
very
strictly because of
valid
Rasmus
defenseman
Dahlin.
number
I
2 on
think he
my
will
team, I think
command the
that was a
second
lot
power
of
play,
value, and
but in
very
some
happy with that
cases, the
deal.
second power play only
And
gets
Braxton.
20 or 30 seconds of time, maybe up to a minute max. Like, I don't know if that contributed to anything involving this raid, but I do think that Owen Power had a really good rookie year, and I still think he can produce offensively because he will be playing top tier minutes. He will exceed 20 minutes a night for sure. So if that happens, I'm not a huge Eric Portillo fan. I don't see a path for him to make the NHL and play consistently. I view him as a worse. Connor could probably drop him and pick up one of the 30 or 40 guys I do like on the waivers. So, I mean, that's not a huge deal. The second round pick I do like. That'll be a top 24 player in next year's draft. And Marco Casper is I think the best prospect the Red Wings have. So, was it an overpay by Lewis? Yes, probably. But if Owen Powers that it becomes a consistent 50 to 60 point defenseman, I don't feel like it's that big of a big deal. Like, I think that in this league, getting elite defensemen is a big priority, and I think that Owen Power definitely can be that if depending on his next few stages of development that Buffalo is going to put him through. So yeah, I like the deal for both sides. Connor definitely got more than fair value, but we'll see. Lewis is very invested into the Buffalo Sabres now, so I'll be happy somebody will watch games with me this year, perhaps. So.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to figure out a comp for a defenseman. I'm almost going to say it's like pitching in baseball. Is at least in this league. Um, Obviously, pitching wins you games in our other league, but in terms of just trying to get pitching and trying to get defensemen, I think it's just kind of similar. Like it's going to be hard to get young elite defensemen. Owen Power didn't score well in our fantasy last year. I know he was only a rookie. He had a really good rookie year in real life, but in fantasy, not so much. So I mean, Connor, again, you hate Thomas Chabot. Thomas Chabot was actually part of the Rimouski team that won the chip last year. He's really good in fantasy for some reason. He will be for probably at least this year, maybe even next year. So, I mean, he got Chabot, he got a pick, he got a worst, and then Marco Casper is a top 2 prospect in Detroit system at the moment, all for one player. But again, at the same time, that's the premium you have to pay for a defenseman of Owen Power's caliber. I do think he has some more name value than what he actually might be as a fantasy defenseman. I think I like Brand Clark as a better fantasy defenseman than Power, even though I like Power as a better real life defenseman. So it makes sense for both sides. Connor got, I think, a pretty decent haul. And then Louis, again, got a premium player at a premium position. That's the best way you can look at it. And kind of similar to that, next trade I want to talk about actually involves myself. Bailey did not trade me Zach Benson, but I got David Reinbacher and a 24 fourth for Nate Danielson, Ryan O'Reilly, and Radko Gudas. So I'll give my thoughts first since it's my trade. Um, because defensemen are at such a premium in this league, Reinbacher, who I really did not like Montreal picking him that early. I mean, I actually think he is going to be a very good defenseman, which is why I traded for him. But in this draft, where some of these forward prospects could maybe even turn into potential all stars someday, like Zach Benson, he was drafted too high in my opinion. Montreal probably should have picked either Michkov or a guy like Benson. Um, I wanted to almost control the defenseman market so that I kind of have all the chips. Because now, along with Reinbacher, I mean, I have Fox, I have McAvoy, I have Taves, who's good now, and then in my prospect pool, I already have Simon Nemitz and Lane Hudson, who are 2 of probably the top 4 defensive prospects in hockey, maybe even 5. And so getting Reinbacher as well, I think I'm pretty set on defenseman now for the foreseeable future. I love that I can now pair him with Lane Hudson. I think Lane Hudson will probably be the one there. Reinbacher will be a really good 2. But, I mean, they might even alternate, but Lane Hudson will probably just get more power play time, honestly. Nate Danielson is a really good prospect on Detroit. I love him and Casper. He might even be a little bit above Casper at this point. For me, the one weakness I think I have in my team, which I don't think there really isn't a lot, the one, though, is like I'm lacking. I have a ton of good forward prospects, and I think they're all like A ranges, but I don't have an A+ one. Like Bracton has Cooley and Michkov, who are A+ prospects. Obviously, there's not a lot. I missed out on him, so I did the best I could. Danielson to me is kind of like a B to B plus. And I already actually had a lot of B to B plus center prospects already, and I actually had a couple A minuses in my opinion, and a guy like Stankoven. So he was movable. Ryan O'Reilly was a guy who could literally be on waivers, I think, by the end of the season, just because like he'll be decent on Nashville, but he's not anything special. And I kind of marketed the hits thing about Radko Gudas. And then once I did that, I literally just picked up Yanni Hakanpää, who only had like 100 less hits than Gudas. So I love this trade. I got a franchise cornerstone, who I think is going to be really, really good, even though I didn't love it in the actual NHL draft. And I think Bailey still got value
I mean, you
in
hit
the
on it,
package I gave for
but
Reinbacher,
going
who again
back
is
to the
probably not
point
going
I
to be
made
up for a
about
little
your
bit.
Perron trade,
Probably won't play this
I
season.
seriously
Maybe
doubt that you
maybe
drafted
from lucky
Ryan
end of the
O'Reilly and
season, maybe
Radko
next
Gudas with
season.
the intention of
But yeah, I
them
mean
being part of your
Danielson for
core
Reinbacher could have
and
probably been the
somebody
trade
that you're
alone,
people that
but
you
I kind of
wanted
had to add
long
a couple of
term.
sweeteners just to make
So
it a little bit more
the
enticing.
theme of getting your
And again,
guys
Ryan O'Reilly's going to
applies
help you
here.
this year.
You didn't lose a
Maybe he'll
prospect
drop him, maybe he'll
slot. You
keep him,
actually
and then
gained
Radko Gudas will
one
win him hits.
counting this
Braxton, I'll let you go
draft pick.
first.
So in doing that and not moving anybody significant to your core, I do like it. However, if we're talking this time next year and Nate Danielson is a clear consensus better prospect than David Reinbacher is, I wouldn't be
No.
surprised. However, like we've been talking about with defensemen, they don't grow on trees. And you've got a team with Leon Draisaitl, Matty Beniers, and other top-class centers that Nate Danielson really was luxury and not necessarily a need. So I guess I can see how the trade makes sense. Ryan O'Reilly is going to play a very significant role in an Nashville Predators team that I guess apparently is competing. this year. So maybe if he stays healthy and he plays those first line minutes, he could be productive for Bailey. And like we've been mentioning throughout this podcast, that Radko Gudas is going to contribute to the hits category. So I like the trade. I don't really have any problem with it. I think David Reinbacher is probably the best player in the deal. But if Nate Danielson turns into Dylan Larkin 2.0, then we'll see. But I like Reinbacher a lot.
And Connor.
Sometimes on the baseball pod, the analysis will boil down to I gave up a whole lot of things I didn't need for something I wanted. So initially, it does look like Bailey has a lot of good value here. Danielson, I do think highly of. The plus prospect does sound about right. And Ryan O'Reilly does seem to have significant point potential in his new setting. But Height was able to get rid of those players, and in return, obviously with Fox and the other defenseman can let Reinbacher develop a little bit further, and then the fourth round pick is just gravy. So I think Bailey gets the value, Height gets the guy he wants, and this is a terrific trade overall.
Yeah, you guys, I think, analyzed the rest of this pretty spot on. So let's move on to the next one. We only have
This was
three more left
extensive
before we wrap things up. This one was me and
trade.
Bracton.
This
Really
probably
interesting
took us
trade.
a good day.
I wanted Pavel
Usually
Buchnevich.
we're able to
I
sit
wanted,
down and
obviously,
talk
I have
about
some
deals,
stopgap
and
guys
it takes
for my
us
NHL team this year, but
under an
sort of
hour
a
really
winger
if we're
with
really
on the
trying to
younger
work
side.
stuff out.
I
But
got Pavel Buchnevich.
Pavel
Bracton got
Buchnevich
John
necessarily
Jason Peterka,
wasn't
Carson
necessarily a
Lambos,
player I
Daniil
really
Boot,
wanted
and
to
a
move.
24 fourth.
I
Bracton,
was
I'll let you go
testing the
first, then
market
I'm going to
for
go,
him,
and then I'll let
but
Connor go.
he's a 27-year-old winger with 70 point potential on a team that I actually do kind of like. I don't think St. Louis
Yeah.
is gonna miss the playoffs by that much if they miss the playoffs at all. So Pavel Buchnevich was definitely hard for me to move, but looking at the Sabres and their outlook, I really believe in JJ Peterka, like a lot of the Sabres fans do. I think that with Jack Quinn missing some time, albeit unfortunate, I think Peterka is going to be the guy to step up and could take a big leap. And if he put up 50 or 60 points this year, I wouldn't be surprised. Carson Lambos, I feel, has a lot of opportunity in Minnesota to step up and play here pretty soon. I think that they've got a lot of aging defensemen in Minnesota, like Jared Spurgeon, like Jonas Berdine, formerly Matt Dumba. They've got guys that are on their way out or maybe going to take a step back that will allow guys like Lambos and Kalen Addison and Brock Faber to step up and play. So I really like Lambos. I think it's an intriguing situation. And Daniil Boot, a lot of people crap on the Arizona Coyotes draft this year, but they have tremendous upside in Simishev and Daniil Boot. I later traded for Simishev, which we'll talk about. But Daniil Boot is interesting to me. He was getting some comps to Tage Thompson, and they were saying that it was going to take a lot of time to develop him and get him over. But if he does, I feel like that's a really legitimate player in our league. He's big, he hits people, he can score. It checks a lot of boxes, I feel like. So that's definitely an intriguing prospect to own. And then a fourth round pick, an extra prospect slot, or a trade chip that I eventually use to turn into the prospect slot so I don't have to wait on it. So definitely got some pieces I like here, but let's not forget that Pavel Buchnevich is a really good hockey player. I'm just hoping that Peterka can be a little bit less than that this year so that the other three pieces in the deal justify the gap.
Yeah, you hit on it pretty well, honestly. JJ Peterka is a guy I really wanted to trade. Um, I like him. I don't dislike him. I think he has upside. It's just not going to be with Buffalo. And if he's going to stay on Buffalo, he's never going to really turn into a super elite fantasy option. So I wanted, a more NHL ready winger that was just under 30, honestly, that I really, really liked. Buchnevich was that guy. I mean, obviously, ex Ranger as well. So, Buchnevich for Paterka, Lambos for me is not going to be anything that special in terms of fantasy value. I think he's a decent NHL prospect. Minnesota, I think, Brock Faber, that's kind of his team, but he was movable. You saw before I kind of got the extra picks or like the extra worst part for my prospect pool, so I didn't really lose much here because I replenished it before. Daniil Boot, literally, I drafted him for name value because honestly, I knew Bracton liked him. I know one or two people liked him too. He is not going to probably be a player until it might even be 7 to 8 years until he really peaks. He might come over, he will come over sooner. He's going to take forever to grow. I already have a couple of projects on my team. I figured I could trade him now before, maybe he stinks it up in Russia or wherever he's coming from. I just thought he was also movable. And then the fourth is obviously just, is a fourth. So I'm happy with it. I think not one side really. I think I got the best player, but Bracton still got, I think, a good amount of value for a player who's, again, he's 28, actually, he's not even 27. He's going to actually help me try to win this year too as well, which I wanted. I already have a ton of youth, so got a guy who's under 30 that can help me win now. So yeah, I like it for both sides. Connor, do you have anything to say?
Not really. For context, I actually technically traded JJ Paterka away. I don't know if we covered it too much in the draft section, but I got Anton Lundell for what ended up being Logan Stankoven and JJ Paterka, and I've become a fan of Paterka the more I've read about him. So I think Bracton got a very nice haul here, but Pavel's my guy. I'm a Blues fan and hope he just kills it next year.
Yeah, don't forget the Rangers traded him away for Sammy Blaine a pick. So classic masterclass there for a very good player who I think he already cracked 76 points at one point of his career. Could probably do it again. Just has to stay healthy. And the one thing that scares me a little bit with Paterka is if Jack Quinn is out, he might
So
actually
we were
at least
talking about the
be an elite,
Rhinebacker
not
trade,
not not about elite, but a
and
solid
I
fantasy option for
think
this
that
season at
Dmitry
least. But I think once
Simishev
Quinn comes
could be
back,
the
he's
best
probably just going to be a
defenseman
third
in this
liner on
draft.
that
And I
Buffalo
know
just
that
because the
that's
Buffalo
a
team
hot
is
take
really good.
to
We'll do
some.
more trades
I mean,
before.
the two were
Actually,
picked right
sorry, three
behind
more
each other,
trades.
right
I
next to
lied.
each
My
other.
apologies.
And I don't
We'll
think it would
run through these
surprise
though.
anybody if in
Bracton
3 or
gets
4
Dmitry
years we're
Simishev
talking
and Luka
about
Delbo
Dmitry
Belouche.
Simishev as the
Paul
best defenseman
gets
in that
Penis.
class.
Linus Omar.
And I didn't
Bracton, you go
have to move
first.
a prospect to get him. I don't know. I traded Linus Olmark before the Bergeron and Krejci retirement. I probably shouldn't have drafted Linus Olmark at all. I should have probably went with Philip Gustafson. I mentioned that earlier, so Smell got a good one, but I wasn't able to make a trade for Philip Gustafson, so I kind of just wanted to get prospect slots to correct a mistake I made during the draft, and Paul had a need in net, so I was able to get 2 prospects for him. Like I said before, we were strapped with prospects in this draft. We were only allowed to pick 20. I probably would have picked a lot more than 20 had we been allowed to draft whoever we wanted, just regardless of prospect or NHL player. So accumulating some prospects back was a priority during the earlier stages after the draft. It still is today. So getting a 2-for-1 there, and it's somebody that I literally think that could be a legitimate prospect in Dmitry Simishev for a guy that wasn't part of my long-term plans was something I wanted to do. So.
And Connor.
Honestly, the Olmark saga kind of annoys me because during the draft, I didn't think him going in the, I forget, 15th round wasn't too bad. And then Bracton immediately was very aggressive on the trade block and trying to get rid of him for multiple prospects. I think the fact that he got Simashev, who is a top 10 pick, is just terrific value for someone who clearly wasn't happy with where the draft ended up. And then another prospect as well. I think that's really good value, and hopefully Linus performs for Paul.
So I'm going to be dead honest here, and I always am with you guys. So, I mean, Linus Allmark obviously should have gotten more than this, I think, just based off the season he had. Obviously, there hasn't been a market for him just yet. I think Bracton could have gotten more potentially if he just sat on him and waited till the season. But I'm going to say this. First of all, I like Luca Del Belbaluz. He's probably just a bottom sixer on that Columbus team. We really need to pump the brakes with Dmitry Simashev. This guy is not that good of a hockey player. He has name value because he's a top 10 pick. According to me and Hen's friend Byron Brader, 5%, star probability. He's getting comps to like Ian Cole, Brady Shea, and I saw Corey Prom from The Athletic call him like Nikita Zadorov. I don't think he's going to be anything special in the NHL. Probably going to be a middle pairing defenseman, maybe a penalty killer. He's definitely not a top 10 pick when we look back at this draft in 3 years at least. I'm very low on him. I don't think he's going to be that good at all. I just think he's going to be a quality, NHL player, just really not having a lot of fantasy value outside of hits and the occasional points here and there. But at the same time, obviously Allmark didn't really serve Bracton in need anymore. And Simashev has name value. So even though I know he stinks, Bracton could probably even get a better prospect for him if he wants to trade Simashev away, just because people might just see he's a 6th overall pick and be like, "Ooh, he must be good. He's a 6th overall pick."
Reunited
So
with Nathan
he's not,
McKinnon,
but
in a chance to revitalize his career a little bit. He's been
name value is name value, but 2 assets still for someone of Allmark's age, I still think is not bad as well. Now,
really
this trade,
good position
Bracton,
there.
I think you definitely did a lot
change of
better.
scenery was definitely needed.
Bracton
to go play with his junior buddy
Jonathan
from
Drouin and a
2013.
fourth.
I feel like
You
he's gonna
got
have a really big
Berggren,
year.
Jonathan
So when
Berggren,
we drafted
and
him,
Cam I'll let
when
you
Paula
go first.
approached me about him, I felt like I could get somebody that I wanted. When she picked Jonathan Berggren, I think in the 34th round, I was kind of like, crap, I missed out on him. I think that he's going to have a big influence on Detroit going forward. So he was definitely a player I was interested in. Cam Lund stands out to me in a really unique San Jose Sharks prospect system. They've got a lot of guys that are kind of like not the same player to me, but have a lot of the same upside. And Cam Lund's one of them, like Tristan Robbins, Ozzy Weisblatt, Cam Lund, Philip Bysted. You can clump all those guys. Brandon Coe, like guys like that are intriguing young prospects to me that I feel like could be up in San Jose very soon. I mean, you saw them trade for guys like Henry Thrun last year, like just guys with high upside and really some good skill. So Cam Lund, to me, is not a worst. So I wanted to get that, or she wanted a pick. So I said, okay, I'll give you the 2024 fourth, because I view Cam Lund as a player that I couldn't, or that will be better than whoever that 24 fourth is. Like nobody in that position that I would draft would be better or closer than Cam Lund is right now. So I feel like I got a pretty good deal here, because I think that Jonathan Berggren is somebody I might explore keeping for a little while Jonathan Drouin wasn't a part of my long-term plan necessarily.
And Connor.
Yeah, I think this is a win for Bracto. Druin's just kind of had a rough time since the turn of the decade and is really hoping that a move to Colorado is going to fix that. So getting 2 prospects of Berggren and Lund's caliber, I think, is a really nice return.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a home run for you, Braxton. I don't like Jonathan Drouin at all, really, anymore. I know, obviously, his career hasn't panned out like we thought it would. Jonathan Bergeron was also a prospect I liked. I think when that Detroit team is really going to be at its peak, when the Yzer plan is finished, probably just going to be a third line forward, maybe low top six. But, I think he's still going to be a decent fantasy player, honestly, better than what Drouin will be. I also like Cam Lund just a little bit more than a worse as well. So I think this is a good trade for you, Braxton. One more trade before we are done. This involved Luke. I think this was his first trade of the league. Welcome, Luke. Luke gets Pavel
So
Zacha
before the
and Bailey's
Bergeron and
24
Krejci retirements, I like the deal
Paula
better
gets
for Paula
Hampus
because I didn't
Lindholm
particularly
and
like
Luke's
either
24
player
third.
necessarily, and I just saw
Very
a fourth for
interesting
a
trade.
third, so I was like, oh, okay.
Connor,
I mean,
you can go
if she
first.
needed a defenseman, I mean, I
I
don't
don't
think
think I have
Hampus
too many
Lindholm is
deep
going to
thoughts
be
on this. I
plus
like
40
Zacha more
this year
than
again,
Lindholm,
which was
and
absolutely ridiculous.
the fourth for third
But
seems like
if
a
he is, if
decent
Boston is
bridge between
a
that
little
gap. I
bit
think I like this a little bit more
better
for
than
Luke,
people
but I could
expect them
definitely
to
see it
be,
going the
given
other
those
way as well.
retirements. I mean, that could be a good deal. But Pavel
Man,
Zacha is going to be the first line center on that team. So if that's the case, and he's playing with guys like Pasternak and Marchand, I think there's a lot of upside for Luke there. So I like the deal.
yeah, I mean, early on in his career, Pavel Zacha sucks. I mean, he was bad on the Devils, gets traded to Boston, plays on that wonderful Czech line with his fellow, Czech teammates and Pasternak and Krejci. Now with those two guys, with Bergeron and Krejci gone, I mean, Pavel Zacha is going to play a huge role on this team, and he's going to play with Pasternak probably again. So I like the get. I think he kind of got him for cheap too. Lindholm, I think, was a product of that insane Boston season. Also, a part of Lindholm's production was when McAvoy was out due to injury for half the year. Wasn't the same after he came back. Still was a decent defenseman. And again, Paul is getting still a defenseman that can help for this year. Probably like a fifth or sixth D man, in my opinion, depending on who else she has. I have to check. I probably lean Luke with this one. But again, if you're getting a defenseman that's at least okay, which I think Lindholm is, it's still not a bad trade by any means. So that wraps up everything for our first episode.
I agree with
Hockey
Connor.
Night
I
with
mean,
Scrubs.
I feel like when we
We'll
end
do
this
our final
podcast,
words.
just
Connor,
overall,
you can
we
go
got to
first.
talk like how Cody does, where we're just.
I really enjoyed
but
this
everything he says is
experience,
true.
both
Where
the larger
when the
draft
league's in a really good
and
place,
the start
I
of this
think
pod.
that
I think
the draft
all
went
of us are very
way better
eager
than we
for the
expected.
season
I
to
think
start,
we
and
banged out
some
50 rounds
teams
in
they
like
had a
6 days,
very
which is fucking
farm
incredible,
focused, and
honestly,
others kind
considering
of
how
went for
long the
whatever the
last
best
draft
value
took.
was. So
So
very eager to
really,
see
really
how
great
this
job to
plays out
everyone who
come
listens to
late
this
October.
podcast and everyone who's in
And
our
Braxton.
league. Just outstanding. I think we've got a really good group of people, not just owners here. We're going to have good conversations. We're going to have healthy debates. We're going to have interesting trades. And most importantly, we're going to have a functioning hockey league with people who care, want to be here, and don't make any stupid league altering decisions that we have to reset anything over. Like, we got some really, really good, intelligent people here, and I'm really excited to play with you guys this year and hopefully have a league that lasts for a long time. So, congrats to everybody on a great draft and a great start to this league. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. Again, thank you for doing the draft with us. 50 rounds is a lot for any league, and for people that aren't as well versed in prospects, being able to do the research to get some prospects on your team, it just goes a long way. This is already so much better than what we did last time around. We have just very, very good owners. who care, that won't do dumb shit. And I just think we're all going to just have a fun time with this, no matter what happens with our team's successes. But that'll do it for this inaugural edition of the podcast. We'll be back soon. I'm not sure when the next episode will be. Obviously, during the season, we'll be around. But for now, be sure to let us know if you want us to keep doing this during the summer to preview anything else. And take care and have a great rest of your day.